Full disclosure, I am a monster, a creature of despair. Not that that should be a cause for concern. If there's one thing I've learned in all my years here, it's that despair is less abundant in those who understand how to plant their hearts in community gardens. You'll be fine, you honeycomb. Who could ever hurt you? Who could be so cold? You'll be fine, oh honey pie. Who could ever hurt you? Who could be so unkind? The culmination of man's mistakes came the day the sun ran so hot it turned the desert to glass. If there's something to be learned from all these losers, it's that the price that you pay for arrogance and a false sense of immunity is to face the wrath of the dying star.
Shoo shoo pop up.
Fine, you honeycomb. Who could ever hurt you? Who could be so cold? You'll be fine, oh honey pie. Who could ever hurt
Dan
you?
Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to Theofo.
So unkind.
Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to Greenland. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to Doramu Champion. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to Ninezine. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to Steebums. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to Descent_Hyena 112. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to Mashu Kitty. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to The Source of the Nile. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to Insta Spam. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to Net_Very. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to The Knight Who Says Yes. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to Mythical Ace 9020. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to Team 123. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to Gwith. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to Emmy Date. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to Yoshi_Drinks_T. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to Rollaway. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to Yukoyan. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to Teddy Pim. Dan Sapman gifted a tier 1 sub to McFrugal. The Straight, Broken.
Hello! How's everybody doing now that we have gotten through the wave of 20 gift subs? Good lord, thank you so much for the 20 gift subs and the tier 3 resub, Dan. As always, it is appreciated, and I appreciate everyone that's ever, showed up to be on the list to get a gift sub, I suppose. Hello, Will, and hello to everyone else showing up already. Yeah. Plan for today is the 2023 video games tier list. I don't recall if I excluded any games that I played off-stream last year, but I got up early today, so I guess that's as much of an excuse as I need to include every game that I played in 2023, probably. Might be missing a couple here and there, but yeah, according to, well, I guess it depends on a couple of, determining factors, whether or not you would include certain things, or if they would stand as their own game. Like, old school RuneScape League could be considered just a part of old school RuneScape. But I'm pretty sure that if we count those separately, I've got 101 games to put onto a tier list today. Games played, not games published. Yes. Because I don't think I played a ton of games that came out this year. Definitely not enough to make a whole stream out of it. Even if I really dug into talking about certain games. Which I could, but let's get some variety on there. Individual listings for every minigame or game emulated inside Yakuza. Oh god. Oh yeah, Dragon Kart, that's a solid B+. But yeah, I got a tier list put together here. Business management minigame. Maybe an A-, maybe a B+. Tier list of Dave the Diver genres. There would be a lot. No, man. Alright. Hang on. Can I find the current song that's playing in my Stream Safe playlist? Oh no, there's a couple of songs that have gotten removed. Alright, so we're currently playing Hoagie. We're about that far in. There we go. Alright. So now, should be able to switch over here and turn... Where is it? There it is. Alright. So... We got a couple of games to talk about. This year has been a very good year for video games, all in all. There have been so many games that came out this year that I just loved all over. A lot of really strong contenders for, I feel like there's going to be a strong showing in S tier. So there's also going to be a couple of games that are probably a little difficult to really put into solid tiers because I have not played a lot of them, like House Flipper 2. I haven't played a ton of House Flipper 2 yet. It was basically just that one stream, but I did like it. But let's go ahead and just go in the order of however these games got piled in here. Halls of Torment. Halls of Torment did not get as much... It didn't get as many content updates later on in the year as I would have liked, so I haven't played it too much in recent times. Oh god. This part of the song needs to stop. There we go. Rating, I like this game, but I accept that it's terrible. That, that's gonna come up. Okay, so Halls of Torment. I enjoyed Halls of Torment a lot as far as, auto shooter survival games go. I think it had a good place in the genre of it being a auto shooter survival that warranted active attention and actively playing the game the whole way through a run. Hollow Cure was also like that, and we'll get to that. But it's nice, it can be nice in the auto shooter games to have a run going where you just kind of watch the fireworks, but there's definitely value in, having one of these games where you're actively making decisions and paying attention from the start to the end. So it's a solid game. I think it needs a little more in the way of content. In terms of, I would like to see a couple more major unlocks that really shake things up. The Torment mode, where it's got a scaling difficulty as you play, is nice. I think some of the classes could use a little more definition in what they're good at and what they are intended to do. But overall, I liked it. I had a good time with Halls of Torment. I think we'll put it... I think I'm gonna put it in B, not because I think that it's not good enough to be in an A, but I think it can become an A if the developers really keep at it. I think that's how we'll rank that one. RuneScape, as in RuneScape 3. I played a good amount of this towards the beginning of the year, and after having played a lot of old school RuneScape, I appreciate a lot of the things that old school RuneScape does, and more importantly, things that it doesn't do. I do think that the daily login bonuses and microtransaction type stuff, I do think that kind of thing can be pretty overwhelming in RuneScape 3. I still liked it. I still like RuneScape 3, especially because of all of the quality of life things. There are so many things in just regular old school RuneScape that frustrate the hell out of me. And it's a lot of just minor things, just annoying things, more so than any real problems that I had with the core design and core gameplay. RuneScape 3 feels like... It does feel like a sequel to old school RuneScape, and I feel like it kind of crafted its own identity in a couple of ways of... there are some things about it where, the scope of the stories that it's telling are in grander scale. The quality of life changes. Like, it feels like a newer RuneScape. And if that's what you want, it's good at being that. As a viewer, pretty much skip the RuneScape streams. Oh yeah, as a stream game, awful. Nobody liked the RuneScape streams. The RuneScape 3, old school RuneScape, even the League stuff, nobody gave a fuck about the RuneScape streams. But as a game, as a game that I enjoyed quite thoroughly, where is RuneScape 2? Old school RuneScape is RuneScape 2. RuneScape Classic was RuneScape 1. It's weird. Proud to say I didn't watch them. Well, I wouldn't go that far. That's maybe a little much. But, RuneScape 3... I think I enjoyed playing RuneScape 3 more than I enjoyed playing old school RuneScape base game. There's a lot of things about old school RuneScape that I value. You know what, we could just bring these two in together. There's a lot of things about old school RuneScape that I appreciate, especially watching more and more, old school RuneScape content creators, watching Settled and folks like that, watching Limpwort, folks like that. I appreciate old school RuneScape. But I still think that RuneScape 3, despite the problems that it has with the microtransaction stuff, the daily login stuff, even in spite of all of those problems, I think RuneScape 3 is more fun to play. There's still content to be made about the game. Old school RuneScape has literally never been more popular. Like, with the Trailblazer League, which I have been playing a fuckload of, old school RuneScape had its highest player count ever. And you know what? We could go ahead and talk about Trailblazer while we're talking about these. Let's just put regular RuneScape and old school RuneScape. Nah, I still enjoyed the time that I spent with regular old school RuneScape. We'll put them in the same tier. I think RuneScape 3 is a higher B, but I appreciate all of the problems that it has. Trailblazer Reloaded, RuneScape League, Old School RuneScape League 4. I'm sorry to everyone showing up for the tier list stream that doesn't give a fuck about RuneScape and just hearing me talk a lot about RuneScape. But I played a lot of RuneScape this year, so sorry, we'll get through it. Trailblazer Reloaded is a fantastic MMO experience, I think. I have had so much fun playing Trailblazer Reloaded because the way that it changes up the core gameplay of RuneScape, all of the weird quality of life changes that it makes, like even something like just giving you infinite run energy makes the game just moment to moment way more fun to play. And then on top of that, giving you all of these weird powers to work your way towards. And them being the kinds of weird powers that there is just no equivalent to in the regular game. is so much fun. I am generally a fan of League-style gameplay. I've been playing Path of Exile for a long time now, and I really enjoy Path of Exile Leagues because the idea of, you know, it's a fresh start and you are intended to play basically from the early game all the way to the late game in a relatively compact amount of time. I think that kind of thing is not only fun as a returning player, because when you have a league in this kind of game, you have new gameplay mechanics like new gear, rebalancing of various things. You have reasons for the enfranchised players to come back, and them being designed to be played in relatively short time frames makes it so much easier to bring in friends, bring in new players. And then while you're these games are more fun to play with friends. Talk about your experiences, talk about your progress and your choices. You know, with Trailblazer specifically, I think there is a bit of a downside when it comes to that stuff, because it's like, oh, well, we didn't really pick many of the same regions. Because the way that the League works is you only get to access certain areas of the world, and you get a bunch of tasks that you were assigned to do for points within those different regions. And if you earn enough points, you get these big mechanical power-ups. So the downside of that kind of thing is, well, you know, we chose all different regions, so we can't compare our progress as easily. But even then, just the idea of just being able to chat with your friends about how you're doing, what you're doing, weird things that you've come across, your choices for which powers you want to choose, which regions, that kind of stuff, I really enjoy that kind of experience when it comes to multiplayer stuff, when it comes to MMO type stuff. Because when for traditional MMOs of just like, hey, everybody log on, we need to go do a dungeon, that kind of thing, sometimes that's just too much of a commitment for me. And it's nice to be able to just talk about your progress, and you know, if one player plays more and gets ahead, that's not really a problem.
Holy crap, 2 years. Also, my fave game this year was probably Hi-Fi Rush.
Oh, we'll get to Hi-Fi Rush. Thank you very much for the resub, Ash. And yeah, 2 years. Golly. Anyways, I should probably not spend this entire stream talking about old school RuneScape League. But a quarter of my hours of existence over the last month and a half have been Trailblazer League. I don't think I can put it as anything less than an S. Absolutely fantastic experience. I am already looking forward to whatever the next league is going to be. And hopefully I can bring in some more folks to try it. Because you don't need to be a RuneScape expert to enjoy it. The game is so accelerated that you're able to access things at a faster rate, so you're not stuck doing like low-level grindy nonsense. You can get into some of the more interesting stuff the game does faster and faster. It's great. I like it a lot. Next up, Cobalt Core. Relatively recent release. Cobalt Core quickly became one of my favorite run-based deck builder games. You know, Slay the Spire, Across the Obelisk, all those kinds of games. I enjoy those kinds of games. Monster Train. And actually, this year there was an example of another game of that genre that I thought was pretty good, but it just didn't click with me. So, I'll talk about that when we get to it. Cobalt Core is fantastic. Just straight up and down, Cobalt Core is so much fun. The character designs are great. The encounter designs are a lot of fun. There are so many cards that feel like the average quality of each of the cards and the relics and, you know, all of these decisions that you're making over the course of the run to make your deck, your build, it feels like there are so many correct decisions, which is something that this genre can really struggle with. Especially something like Across the Obelisk, where like over the course of playing a lot of Across the Obelisk, you end up with just so much consistency that every run kind of ends up feeling the same. And I feel like that is so much less of a problem with Cobalt Core. It is, even if it didn't have super cute designs, fantastic music, fun writing, like even if it didn't have any of that, it is a fun game. Like, the core gameplay is really stellar. Ah, big crystal. Yeah, it's big. That's the thing about it. Yeah, it's great. Can we have a tier for RuneScape? If I make a tier for every little gimmicky nonsense, then I wouldn't be able to fit the games on the screen. Because if we're making a RuneScape tier, then we're also making a Hi-Fi Rush tier. And let's not get out of hand. More tears, more tears. I'll give you some tears, buddy. I can only imagine it'll get way better with DLC. What, Cobalt Core? I don't know. Monster Train, I thought, was a pretty great deck builder, and then the DLC came out, and by all accounts, the DLC made the game way worse. Alright, so Cobalt Core, S tier, loved it, top to bottom, fantastic game. Mega Man Battle Network 2. Man, I am looking forward to getting back to Mega Man Battle Network in the new year. Because especially 4 and 5, I felt 4 and 5 were just great games. Loved Mega Man Battle Network 4 and 5. 2 was a little rough. I spent so much time wandering around completely lost in Battle Network 2, and towards the end, there were so many segments where I'm just following a walkthrough and going through a horrible maze while just getting completely flooded with random encounters. 4 is a goddamn trash fire. I don't remember 4 being bad. Maybe I'm thinking of like 3 and 5 or something? I don't know. You can break the game a lot more in the Monster Train DLC, but you need to break the game to beat the Ultra Final Boss. Yeah, I've still never beaten the true heart in Slay the Spire or whatever, because it felt like it needed such a specific build, which is annoying. Like, there's nothing in Cobalt Core that felt like it was just a complete counter to my build, or at least nothing that I came across naturally. There's one fight that's kind of gimmicky, but even then, I feel like that if you're just strong enough, then you can still deal with that. I don't know. Battle Network 2, I think, ends up in a B tier. There were things about it that I liked a lot. There were some fun moments, like hacking into the bear. But I think, like, the world design, like just figuring out where to go next, how to get there, navigating the net, I feel like it was pretty rough, but there were still some good moments, some fun chips, and so on. Mario Party. Let's grab 4, 5, and 6. We'll do Mario Party 4, 5, and 6 all at the same time, because I only played each of them once, and it was all the same stream. I really like the GameCube Mario parties. I don't love 7. I feel like Mario Party 7 just doesn't really have any good boards. Like, every board in 7 is super duper gimmicky, and even 6 leaned a little too far on the gimmick boards. I think 5 is overall the best balance of... I think 5 has the best balance of, like, fun mini-games, good board designs, and interesting mechanics out of these 3. Where's Costume Party? I didn't play Mario Party 2 this year. We'll put 5 in B, and 4 and 6 can be a high C, I think. I enjoy Mario Party, and I'm looking forward to more Mario Parties in the coming year. I have a plan for doing the Wii Mario Parties as well as the Switch Mario Parties. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Donkey Kong 64 is so much worse than I remembered. Donkey Kong 64 is a game that I have a lot of nostalgia for, because it was, you know, one of the first video games that I really put a lot of time into. I liked that there was a big variety in the levels and how you get the bananas, how you get all the collectibles, the way that all of the different Kongs like played differently. I thought all of that stuff, as a kid, all of that stuff made it like compete for me with, you know, Banjo-Tooie, Mario 64, like the other big collectathons of the time. Going back to it, oh man, even with a mod that let me switch Kongs wherever I wanted, like I didn't need to go back to a switch barrel or anything like that. I could just switch wherever. And even then, pretty rough. Pretty rough. There are so many bananas that are just not fun to get. There are so many bananas that, like, have no good indicator of how you're supposed to get them. Just, like, bananas that are just, like, I have no idea what you expect me to do here. Not a lot of great signposting for some of those bananas. And then just... there's a million fucking collectibles everywhere. And, you know, at the time that was kind of an upside, but even when I could just immediately switch and collect it right there, I think that was a bad decision. Yeah, I think Donkey Kong 64 might be a low C tier because I still had fun with it. There were still aspects of the game that I enjoyed, still some moments and some levels that I liked going back to, but low C, I think. That might get bumped down to a high D after we go through some more of these games, but let's keep it moving. I've already been going for a while, and I have a lot of games to get through. Bone Razor Minions, another auto shooter survival that I played this year. I think the different classes were pretty fun, and the way they changed the style of game were generally interesting. But I think as you progress through the game, it relied more and more on like running around and activating the buildings that you place in the map ahead of time. And I don't really like that level of consistency, that scope of decision making to be made in an auto shooter survival. I kind of like I enjoy meta progression type stuff. I love that kind of thing. And Bone Razor Minions did some of that stuff pretty well. But I think the, like, shaping the map and stuff like that, I think that's a step too far in terms of planning ahead. Because then, you know, one of the problems with having so many little things to plan ahead in a run is the runs start to get pretty samey. So, I think it's a high C. I don't think it's a bad game, and if you like auto shooter survivals, I think Bone Razor Minion is worth checking out, worth playing. But it didn't really stick with me. I thought that there were things about it that I just didn't love, and those things really started to rack up over time. So maybe I just soured on it based off of, like, the last couple of things that I did in it, but oh well. Age of Wonders 4. I haven't played as much of this recently. Maybe I should go back and get in another couple of games. I like Age of Wonders 4 a lot. I think it is a very, very good entry in the, you know, turn-based 4X style game. The race creation type stuff is so much fun. Hallelujah, a game that lets you play as cat people, and the cat people don't look awful. Fewer and further between than you would expect. I thought y'all liked cat girls. Come on, gaming community. I liked it a lot. I think it also had the benefit of the runs being more reasonable duration compared to, like, a Civilization or anything like that. I do think that the run, like, the games could start feeling a little samey, depending on like how high into the tech levels or magic levels or whatever you get. And I do think the game struggles in the same way that a lot of 4X games struggle, where once you start getting to, like, high levels of military power, then wars just become a complete slog. So many runs I had an entire civilization built around, I just want one army of super powerful units, and I just want to use that to solve every problem, and even then, it would still take a while to try and get through a war. So I think it's still pretty great. I think it's a low A, but I think it's an A. Game looked like a neat 4X, but too expensive and graphics intensive. Yeah, it's... I think the graphics weren't even the biggest problem when I was running it. I think my CPU was choking on it, which is a shame. But, I mean, especially if it's on sale, I think it's generally worth it, even if you run it on potato mode. Pretty solid. Hitman World of Assassination. I love the new Hitman games. The Hitman World of Assassination trilogy, love them. The design of the levels, there is just so much to explore, so many things to find, so many ways to approach any given scenario. So much fun. You can get so creative with it, and even if you do not, if you're not a creative person, which I can sometimes find myself lacking in creativity, even if you don't feel super creative, the story missions, there's a good variety of the story missions, and the story missions really give you some fun stuff to do and guide you through doing them properly. File size and stability should factor into Hitman's tier. So apparently, Hitman World of Assassination's file size did get dropped down. It is not as much of a hard drive hog as I had thought it was. Apparently they did finally get some optimization done to it. Now, stability, I'm going to assign some of the stability issues that I had with the Hitman World of Assassination trilogy to the fact that I played it on Game Pass. Game Pass will cause some problems with games sometimes. It's not the first game that I've had to fix because I was playing the Game Pass version instead of the Steam version. I never had any stability issues with Hitman 1 or 2 on Steam. So I think Game Pass is at least partially to blame. Even so, even with the tech problems, I still think it is worth playing if you have Game Pass. And maybe even worth picking up, a month of Game Pass just to play it. Because a month of Game Pass is, what, $10-15? But Hitman World of Assassination Trilogy is so good at being the kind of game that you can just pick up and, do one playthrough of a level, complete a couple of challenges, or just do something silly. And there's the Freelancer mode now, which is a pretty cool way of handling a run-based Hitman experience. I like Hitman a whole lot. I don't think I love it enough to put it into S tier. But if I don't, it's definitely near the top of the A tiers. It is so much fun. It's so entertaining. Because it's so goofy. You have these serious story moments, and I think it generally did a pretty good job of hitting the story moments and making them feel impactful, while still letting you complete a mission by dressing up in a flamingo mascot costume and hitting someone with a fish from 15 meters away, and then throwing their body off a cliff. You know what? Low S tier. I talked myself into it. Hitman World of Assassination Trilogy. Highly recommended. And I think they did a good job of, how they ended the trilogy and setting themselves up in such a way that they could do more Hitman if they want. I love it. House Flipper 2! I have not played a ton of House Flipper 2. So take my rating with a grain of salt. But what I have played of House Flipper 2 thus far, I think has been broad improvements over House Flipper 1, which was already a game I liked a lot. House Flipper 2... Some of the new systems feel a little excessive, the vacuuming, I think having the vacuuming and then the cleaning and then the cleaning spray, I like the cleaning spray mechanic. It's a fun little extra addition to the core of the House Flipper experience, but I think once all is said and done, it might all add up to be just a little much in terms of mechanical density for what House Flipper is supposed to be. But I was genuinely surprised and impressed when there was solid environmental storytelling in House Flipper 2. One of the houses that you get a mission to handle early on is some dweeb talking in fantasy speak He's like, oh, I need to clean up my basement because I finally got a player 2 or whatever the hell he said. And then you go in and you look at the living room and it's like, oh, in the living room they were playing like fucking Gloomhaven or something. They've got like a tabletop game going on and video games all over the shelves and anime posters, and you're like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna have to clean all this up. And no, all of that is already perfect. You might, like, you need to do a little sweeping, but what you need to do is you need to redo the basement to include a newer TV and, like, some of the video games that this person's spouse is bringing into the household. Like, you're not getting rid of the nerdy stuff, you're bringing more nerdy stuff into the house because, you know, the person, like, their new significant other is also a nerd, and it was touching. It was just like, that's really sweet. It was a great moment, and it was not a moment that I was expecting to experience in House Flipper. I'll put it in A. Maybe over the course of playing more of it, it might bump itself down a little bit, but I mean, I liked House Flipper 1 a lot, and I don't really see how House Flipper 2 could get any worse than House Flipper 1. When you married your husband, combined your console collection, so now you have 2 PS2s? Hell yeah. Super Mario 64! I still love Super Mario 64. I mean, I say this about so many games, but I want to stream more of it, because I want to play more of it, because I love Mario 64. It's so much fun to play. Even after however much I have played, I still feel like every time I play, I get better at something about it. Like, you know, I'll figure out a little optimization, I'll figure out one thing that I can make a little more consistent. It's a game full of just little decisions and so many skill-based moments that really add up, even nowadays. And then there's also, you know, there's ROM hacks, there's the multiplayer mod and stuff to keep it fresh, keep it lively. I mean, how could it be anything but? I don't think we're going to go super specific in the ordering of the tiers, but yeah. Mario 64, still one of the greats. It's S tier for Mario. Cyberpunk 2077. It has a furry mod now. Hell yeah. I think you need, like, a patch to make it work in the most recent update, because there was an update that kind of broke some mods, and the mod creator has not updated it yet, so oops. But you know, furry mod aside, I liked Cyberpunk 2077 when it came out. You know, that's a game I played it for, like, shoot, at least 70 hours when it had first come out, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. And one of the biggest problems I had with it was, damn, I wish I had a better computer so I could run it better. And now I have a new video card and I'm able to run it, like, super cranked out, like super high settings, and it looks really good. And when it looks good, it looks so good. And being able to have the game look its best while still maintaining a good frame rate so that playing it still feels good, oh, love it. Love it, love it. Now, in terms of just, like, how good of a game is it for realsies, I mean, it's still kind of a generic open world action-adventure type thing. I think the setting does a lot for making it fun to engage with. I'm someone who loves Deus Ex Human Revolution. That's a game that I'll go back and do another playthrough of every couple of years. So I really enjoy cyberpunk, higher tech level type stuff in more urban environments. That kind of stuff always appeals to me. I need to check out the new fucking RoboCop game, apparently. But Cyberpunk 2077 still feels pretty limited in what you can do creatively just because of its design as this super accessible, big, open world game, you know, appealing to the lowest common denominator kind of thing. It's not that it's like, you know, it's Grand Theft Auto where you just have no decisions to make, but I think that a lot of the decisions to make do lack some of the depth that I would want to really rate it much higher than an A. But if your computer can run it, like, I think it's worth checking out. I think Night City is a fun environment to explore. I like the Johnny Silverhand storyline and all that. I'm a little miffed that they made it more difficult to approach situations non-lethally. I think like the most recent major update, the 1.2 update or whatever it was. It's a bummer because I do enjoy playing that kind of game non-lethally, but overall I think it's probably for the best that they did not make non-lethal options as prevalent, and because there's not really a karma system, the game doesn't really care how many people you kill. There's only a couple of situations where handling a situation non-lethally gives you, like, there's not really many situations where that is even acknowledged at all. So, it's fine. Fine, I'll just murder all of these gangsters if you insist, Cyberpunk. I guess I don't care. Ah, well. Still, a lot of fun. Yeah. A rank, at least. Jackbox Party Packs. I still have not played the most recent Jackbox. But I mean, who hates a Jackbox, right? Job is still a laugh and a half every time. I want to try the new TKO, now that it is allegedly working. But it's a fun thing. Just, you know, having a fun party with your friends. It is the party game in a way. It is just such an incredible height of just hanging out with friends and, you know, cracking jokes and having a laugh. The new TKO is pretty good, and there's, in theory, other games on it. Yeah. Good to hear. I mean, usually when it comes to the party packs, it's like, there's the one game that people are going to play regularly, and then also others that maybe you'll whip out every now and then, but they fix it eventually, but you don't know if they fixed anything or if the server load just went down. Ah, I see. One of those situations. The new things were neat, it just launched really terribly. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, solid A. I don't really go out of my way for Jackbox super often because it could be a lot. It can kind of be overwhelming. So I'm not going to put it up in S, but I love it. I also love Tetris 99. I'm not going out of my way to play Tetris 99 on the daily. I'm not a killer like I used to be, but I think part of that is just the people who are still playing Tetris 99 are the killers. It's like trying to get in on, you know, Counter-Strike. You don't really have as a bunch of huge mass appeal moments for Counter-Strike of like, oh man, everybody's playing Counter-Strike now. Now, you still mostly are going to be interacting with people who are quite good at it and have been playing Counter-Strike for a long time. So, it's an A. I like Tetris 99. It's pretty great. It's a pretty great time, and I like the Animal Crossing theme. The only issue with, other than games literally not working, they took most of the furries out of TKO. Ugh. C tier then. Get the fuck out of here. No. Get back up. Hypnotarius is pretty fun. Yeah, I need to check it out at some point. Maybe sometime in the new year we'll do some jackboxing of the newest party pack. Magic the Gathering. So I used the image for Magic the Gathering Arena, but let's talk a little bit about Magic in general. Now that I have more local friends, now that I have a reliable group of people coming over every weekend to play Commander, man, I had forgotten how much I love sitting down with, a couple of friends and playing Magic with physical cards and just making an afternoon of it.
Ash_Graytree gifted a tier 1 sub to Magakun.
Magakun!
60 gift subs in the channel.
Thank you so much for the gift sub, Ash. You corrupted us with Magic. Yeah, it's been so much fun having y'all over and just, Lawyer Dog will cook something up, and then once we're done and clean off the kitchen counter, we sit down and play a game or two of Commander. And it's something that I genuinely look forward to every week. It is so much fun. But I mean, that's kind of just, that's kind of a symptom of something great that happened in my life this year, of having friends, like having more local friends to hang out and do stuff with. It was genuinely a pretty good mental health boost, and I mean, even aside from Colt being the super generous person that he is, and Cat underscores being as generous as he was when he was around, just, getting more takeout food, like, that's fun, that's nice, but it's great to have people around and to spend time in person, physically, with folks doing a thing. Most expensive loot box game. So, as I've been playing Magic since, 2017? I've been playing Magic for 6 years now. Over 6 years. Because I think we started, early 2017, so almost 7 years now. It is a game where, especially if you have a friend group of people who play it, it is a game that is pretty good for allowing you to kind of set your own budget. And especially if you have friends who have been playing and who play regularly, because it's such a social thing, especially playing Commander and stuff like that. A relatively casual format. You can share your cards. You can just share your decks. Oh, hey, I know you have the new vampire deck. Could I play that in the next game? Here, you can try my 3-color attack trigger deck. Here, why not try the group hug deck? Here, I haven't played this deck in a while. I know it's kind of bad, but maybe it'll do something interesting. And then it did. Curiosity Crafter and Greasefang are cute. Oh, yeah. And then, you've got Ink Eyes, you've got a Johnny, you've got Kemba, you've got Miri. There are cool furries in Magic. Hell yeah. when you were at university, people would let you use your pre-made decks, no questions asked. Yeah, like it being so social, like especially Commander, because it's 4 players, so it does not have as competitive a vibe as 1 versus 1, and Wizards of the Coast, well, however, it's not Blizzard, so there's that. But however you feel about giving them money, the pre-constructed Commander decks are such a fantastic product. And it's like, ooh, I love the product. Oh, that should maybe be something that I put on my soundboard when I finally get that set up. I love the product. But just being able to, like, you've got this collectible card game that's been going on for decades, and you have people with these decks that are worth hundreds or even thousands. Being able to go to the card shop and be like, hey, I would like to start playing Commander with my friends. And they say, okay, here are a selection of $30 to $45 decks. They all have 100 cards. They all play pretty well, so like even if you sit down with a bunch of people who have been playing for a long time, you're still going to end up with a deck that can play the game. You're not just going to be completely blown out. And then, hey, maybe I'll get some card sleeves so that I don't scuff up my cards, and so they're nicer to shuffle. And then you can get yourself a playmat, and it's like, $60, and you start playing, and you start engaging in a hobby. Because all of the cards that you got in that pre-constructed deck, if you decide, I don't really like these cards in this deck, well, you can pick up a couple of cards to replace them for probably, most cards are not expensive. And if you don't have to buy packs of cards to get new cards. There are so many ways to get new cards, to get the cards that you want, and especially if you have people who are like a regular play group of some kind, there are so many ways to get more cards in such a way that you are still playing the game, like pre-release events, or just doing a draft with your friends, or doing a sealed kind of thing with your friends. Like, you get new cards and you are playing you are having a unique gameplay experience. It's great. Like, I love Magic. I love Magic so much. The pre-constructed decks you got are pretty fucking strong. Yeah, the most recent set of pre-constructed Commander decks play really well against each other, but are also just really strong. Like, some of the most powerful pre-constructed decks they have ever printed, probably. And they've just gotten a lot better about making these pre-constructed decks not just good, but fun to play, interesting to play. So, I'm a big Magic nerd. I love Magic. I love Magic so much. Even when I am not, like, super into, like, playing Magic regularly. Like, I haven't actually played a ton of Magic Arena in a couple of months. But even so, just, I think being able to play with physical cards with people in person has really reignited my love for Magic in a way that it has not burned with this same kind of intensity since I was going to a card shop, pre-COVID, and hanging out with people in person and playing, Commander games with just random other folks, or occasionally doing a draft or something like that. Gladiator is probably real again now that Khans of Tarkir is out on Arena. Yeah, I need to get back into Arena as well. But yeah, I could talk about Magic for another hour or so, but on the tier list, Magic is an S rank for sure. I love Magic a lot. Super Mario Party. I like Super Mario Party. I think it does a lot of really interesting things with the format of Mario Party. I think some of the alternate game modes, other than just the regular-ass party mode, are actually pretty cool. I think the buddy system is an interesting kind of thing. The different character-specific dice that you get access to are fun ways of mixing up the regular gameplay experience. But there's not enough in it. There's not enough minigames. There's not enough boards to actually play on. And in a similar kind of problem that I have with where's Mario Party Superstars? Mario Wonder. I know it's here somewhere. Oh god, where is it? They need a Super Mario Party 2. There it is. So, Mario Party Super... So, I guess I'll just talk about these two together. I played both of them with my family while I was visiting them during Christmas, and I had a great time. Playing Mario Party with your family is a good time. Playing Mario Party with your friends is a good time. Like, you know, you gotta go in expecting that you're gonna get screwed over one way or another, and, you know, shit happens. That's fine. But both of these games had a big problem where, it feels like such a missed opportunity that neither of these games had DLC. It felt like these games needed DLC so bad. Mario Party Superstars would be, like, the best Mario Party game if they just added in, like, some extra minigames, some extra boards. Like, the core of Mario Party Superstars is fantastic because they took a lot of the best parts of, like, from across the entire Mario Party series and put it into one game. Great, I love it. How many boards do I get? 5. Okay. Do I get any more? Like, can I buy more? I'll pay, you know, a couple of bucks for an extra map. Nope. Absolutely not. Don't be crazy. What? No. Stupid. Idiot. Like, what? Why? You have so many boards to pick from. You have so many, like, mini-games to choose from. You could have put in more mini-games. You could have put in more maps. You could have turned it into, like, the best Mario Party experience there is. And it might still be the best Mario Party, but it could have been so much more, and it's so frustrating. So, Super Mario Party, I think I'll put it, like, around Mario Party 5. I enjoyed Mario Party 5 more than Super Mario Party, but I think the new stuff that Super Mario Party does is worth playing. Like, I would still be willing to whip out Super Mario Party. Like, if I were to play Mario Party in person with some friends, like, Super Mario Party would definitely be on the list of Mario Parties to play. Meanwhile, Mario Party Superstars, it's not quite an A, but it might be a high B. Despite the fact that Superstars feels like a missed opportunity in regards to the DLC stuff, it's a lot of fun. It's got so many of the best mini-games. And even if the boards that they chose were, like, a little on the basic side, I think it's still a really solid experience. Like, one of the most consistently fun Mario parties overall. Backpack Battles. Backpack Battles... I am so excited to see what that game is like when they do a full release. Because the Backpack Battles that I have played has been a lot of fun. It feels like there is a good, at least as of the time that I last played it, there was a good variety of builds there were a lot of interesting items, and the systems of like how you can rearrange the pouches, the system of, oh, you can combine these two items, but in order to do so, you have to complete a round while these two items are next to each other in your inventory. And it's like, oh, it's such a little thing that they did, as opposed to just like, you just stick these two items together and bam. But making it a decision of just like, well, this item is not very good, but if I combine it with this other item, it will be good. So am I willing to, spend the inventory space in order to make that happen? It's great. I would like to see what they do with more of the characters, more items and stuff. I'm not saying like, oh, you need to have 1,000 items in the game, because this kind of game, Super Auto Pets, a lot of auto chess type games, they do benefit from having a variety of items in which you can learn what to expect, and you can learn, like, over time, the more you play it, the more you know the kinds of builds that people might have, and how you can shore up your game against certain builds, and whether or not it's worth the risk to try and shore up your game against a certain build, or just hope that you don't play against that build. And if you've got an unreasonable number of items that you could potentially have, then sometimes that ends up, it feels like it can kind of be out of your control, as opposed to being something that you can apply experience and knowledge to get better at it. They could have just released it as a video game you could buy a couple months ago, and it would be pretty good, and they've done a lot of updating since then, and it's not due to release until April. Yeah, it's really solid. I am so looking forward to what the game is like when the full release happens, because it's a lot of fun. The inventory management type stuff. I'll be getting to Backpack Hero at some point here. Here it is. Backpack Hero is almost near the bottom. Maybe we'll bring that up since these two games are related. Comparing Backpack Battles to Backpack Hero kind of suffers from having such a gigantic variety of items, but it being a single-player experience makes that so different from Backpack Battles. Backpack Battles having a more refined variety of items and variety of obstacles that you can come across. I think that's super valuable, and these games are generally good for different reasons, but the core of you have, inventory slots, and you have to arrange your items within that inventory to try and optimize various effects. Having to make decisions as to whether taking certain items over other items is worth it, because, sometimes one item will be really good if you get another item, but is it worth the risk having to hold on to it until then? Yeah, Backpack Battles, high A, maybe a low S. I think it's a high A, but it's a very solid experience. I like Backpack Battles a lot, and I'm looking forward to what it becomes. Backpack Hero. Now, I think the core gameplay loop of Backpack Hero, like the regular game, not the new story mode, because they introduced a story mode, I think that part of the game is still really good. And I don't love some of the unlockable characters, I still feel like the base character is the best balanced of all of the different characters. But there's still a lot of fun to be had with like the robot and stuff like that. I believe I rated Backpack Hero fairly highly last year. I still think that Backpack Hero is a good game overall, but it does come with the caveat now. If I were to recommend someone pick up Backpack Hero for the first time, the story mode is rough. I think the story mode is not paced terribly well. I think there are some fun aspects of it, of, you know, having to, like, it being a multi-run experience. Like, you know, there's a lot of meta progression type stuff going on, and the risk reward of, oh, I'm going to drop this item that is useful for me as I am actually doing the dungeon stuff, in exchange for some resources when I bring it back to town. I think that stuff is interesting, and I think if they keep working on it and, you know, rebalance a couple of things, change the pacing in a couple of areas, I think that kind of thing can make for a fun experience. But you unlock stuff real slow, and some of that stuff is outright bad for you, and there's not really a way to control that kind of stuff, and having bad things unlocked when you don't have many things unlocked becomes so much worse. It's frustrating. I don't think the story mode makes the game actively worse, but I think the story mode needs a lot of work, and I do worry that people might get a bad first impression of the game if they go in immediately into the story mode, because just the regular run-based, like the full roguelike kind of thing, I think that is just a really fun experience. I love the inventory management stuff. I think there's a lot of really fun and interesting builds that you can do and item interactions. But it is a bummer that they finally released the story mode, and it is just rough. So I think it's going to be a low A. I'm not going to take it out of A because of the story mode. I think it is still a solid, enjoyable game. Yeah, and it's also got fun furries in it, so bonus points. Final Fantasy VII Remake! I finally finished this year. Thinking about how I finished it this year, one of my first thoughts is, man, the song during the ending credits is so good. Holy shit. I can be pretty wary of Final Fantasy songs that have lyrics, because often they can end up feeling like super sappy or super just like, the lyrics don't really add much to it. But the ending song for 7 Remake having lyrics really pulled it together. It's so good. And the game as a whole, like, I thought I was pretty close to the end when I had stopped playing, but goddamn, there's a lot of game in that game. Final Fantasy VII Remake is like, especially if you do a bunch of the side content, like that's at least a 40-hour game. It's great. I'm so fucking excited for Rebirth, because the ending, I had heard a lot of mixed things about the ending, but having experienced the ending myself, I am so interested in what they do moving forwards. What they are going to do with what the game is. Because having played through it, like, there were a lot of things already in just the first remake game that's just like, wow, huh? Weird. What are they... what's this gonna be? And then the ending is just like, man, what the hell is coming next? I'm extremely excited for Rebirth. I'm putting Remake up there in the S tiers. There was a moment, like, I'm gonna move on from 7 here shortly. I see people talking about 14. 14 is actually on the list, so I might bring that up to talk about that a little bit. There was a moment towards the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake where I'm fighting a boss, and its theme is pretty great. Like, it's like, oh man, they did a good job of adapting this boss's theme to, like, a more modern style. Like, not like it was not fitting for the game, but it's just like, this feels like a good way to handle this boss's theme in the context of the remake. But man, the theme for this boss, like the original theme for that boss from the original Final Fantasy VII, was so cool and weird and unique, and I love it. I love that theme. But, you know what? I'll live. And then I got to Phase 2, and they started playing the fucking theme! And I was, like, the theme from 7, like, much more directly translated from, like, the old soundtrack into the new. And I popped the fuck off. That was like one of the most exciting moments in a video game that I experienced this year. I loved it so much. So, yeah. 7 Remake. So good. Final Fantasy XIV. I am still not out of Stormbringers is the second expansion, right? Stormblood? Yeah, Stormblood and Shadowbringers. SB, yeah. Oh yeah, I love the Final Fantasy XIV SB expansion. So, Bear is wonderful in the remake. All of the characters are so good in the remake. Anyway, I could go on about the remake, but let's continue. Final Fantasy XIV. I am still not done with Stormblood. I want to be done with Stormblood, because the reason why I bounced off the last time that I started playing it again was because Stormblood takes place in the 2 different regions. There's Doma and the other one. We went back, like, as soon as the story took me back to the other place, the place that wasn't Doma, I stopped playing, because it was just like, oh man, I was hanging out in cool, totally not Japan, doing, like, fighting against the Imperials, like, that stuff was cool. And then you send me back to the other place, dang it. So, I need to get back into it, but, I mean, it's still one of the best MMOs out there. Whether I bounce off of it or not, props to a real one. I think it's going to be a little bit before I get back into the MMO mood after having spent, 270 hours over the last 6 weeks on Trailblazer League, and I'm still going to be playing more of it. I'm going to need a bit of a cooldown from MMOs, but I'm looking forward to playing more Final Fantasy XIV. That game rules. The Domesdale Dome. And while we're talking about Final Fantasy, hey, Final Fantasy VI! Cult gifted me Final Fantasy VI on Steam. Thank you very much for that. I don't really like it. Final Fantasy VI is widely regarded to be one of the classics, you know, of the Final Fantasy series. You know, a truly great example of what that series could be before the transition into 3D, and then, you know, Final Fantasy VII kind of remade the whole thing, in public perception at least. But having never played 6 before, having no nostalgia for 6, going back to 6 now was pretty fucking rough, because, man, I got lost in that game. I had no idea where I was going like half the time in Final Fantasy VI. And I went in expecting, you know, oh, there's so many different playable characters. Oh, that's so neat. I can't wait to, you know, kind of customize my party to you know, shape my experience to be a little more in line with what I want to be doing in combat. And I appreciate the structure of this kind of game, of you don't get to just choose whoever you want right away, because, you know, we gotta give each of these characters a chance to not just have some screen time, but show you what they are capable of when it comes to combat, because otherwise it's just like, I know I like these 4 characters, so I'm only ever going to play these 4 characters. I get it. I understand the problem. But it takes a long fucking time before you get to make any decisions when it comes to your party composition. And the idea that every character can just get every spell through the Esper system is like kind of neat. Honestly, I think the GF system might be better, which tastes a little sour in my mouth because I don't like Final Fantasy VIII. But yeah, everyone being able to get access to every spell kind of makes all of these characters feel a little more samey, even though, you know, every character has their own unique abilities, and so theoretically every character will have situations where they are better. But I don't think the balance is such that it really shakes out that way. And so there would be times where it's like, oh man, I'm finally getting into a groove with these characters. I've got some cool shit that these characters can do. I'm having a good time playing as them. Oh, I have to play as the thief again. Oh, okay. Great. It would be wild if you end up enjoying 8 more after playing 6. I mean, that very well could be the case. I could, like, go back and start up 8 again and be like, actually, I kind of get it. The Esper system in Final Fantasy VI is kind of, well, they teach you spells, but they also give you stat boosts on level up. I think that fucking sucks. I think that's a bad system. Because then you, like, based off of the Esper, if you want to be optimal, it encourages you to, like, micromanage and constantly finagle with what espers you have equipped on which characters. It's like, oh, well, this character is about to level up, time to switch back to this esper. And if you don't engage with that kind of thing, then you can end up with situations where, well, this character had the esper that was boosting their magic for a long time, and it turns out that they are way better at just using physical attacks and, like, physical skills, and it's just like, oh, well, I guess they're way worse than they could have been if I had a different esper equipped to them. It's frustrating. Have you tried Octopath? I'm trying to... No, I was thinking of Bravely Default. I have not played Octopath Traveler yet, no. Never a fan of switching items and abilities to get better stat ups. Yeah, it's... I think that kind of system is frustrating. Because... You know, having an item that increases a character's, speed stat by a little bit, that's one thing, Put all your speed tabs on Chrono, whatever. But... especially when, it can be really frustrating to have a system like that because you can end up in situations where you get pretty deep into the game before you even get access to that system, and then there's much more game after it. And you can end up in situations where it's like, oh, well, man, I wish I had this Esper equipped on this character whenever they leveled up. It can result in some bad feels of just like, man, I wasted so much potential in this character. Octopath Traveler 2 directly addresses some of the issues you have with party composition in Final Fantasy VI. Oh! I've heard good things about the Octopath Traveler games, and I do intend on checking them out someday. Live Alive is gonna be on the to-do list before Octopath, but at least it's not Fire Emblem, where sometimes level ups produce no stat gains. Yeah, fuck that. Oh, God. Randomized results of leveling up can be so frustrating. The Live Alive remake is so good. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And I was told that the remake also solves another problem that I had with Final Fantasy VI of getting lost all the time, where the Live Alive remake will point you in the general direction of what you need to do next. But yeah, like Final Fantasy VI, I spent a lot of it lost. I didn't love some of the mechanical decisions that they made. I just did not have a fantastic time with it. D for Dave. You should add Chairfucker Simulator so you could have something in D tier. Did I play anything this year that I disliked enough to put into D tier? Maybe I should be a little harsher on some of these games. Oh wait, no. There is one. One Piece World Seeker. Oh boy. Oh jeez. Forgot you played this. Yeah. So... the combat was not very good. But it looked nice. It had a look to it that felt very One Piece. So I go into it and I was like, okay, well, combat's a little janky, but, we've got some... It looks good, so maybe once we start unlocking some more of these abilities and start expanding the skill tree out a little bit, maybe we'll get some cool stuff going on. And then just the more that I learned about the mechanics of this game made me just deflate more and more of just like, oh, this thing only applies when you're using this combat style. Oh, the combat style switching feels like this? Oh. Oh, like, this is what the secret part of the skill tree was? Oh, gee, oh, man. And then I finally unlock, you know, the slingshot. You get access to the, you know, the grapple pretty early on, but it feels so flaccid because you don't really keep any of your momentum. You just grapple and then it's like you're there and you just drop down. And then you unlock the ability to, like, really launch yourself, really get going. You know, explore the space with your with the grappling hook, and it's like, okay, all right. Now we're moving around. Now it feels like I've got some fun mobility. I can, like, drop in on people from above. And, okay, I see where we're going. All right. And then I go to the next area that the game points me towards, and it's like this big city-looking area. And it's like, okay, all right. This seems like it'd be pretty fun to traverse with the rocket, just flinging yourself all over town, and lots of stuff to grab onto. I love, you know, big city kinds of areas. And then I tried to launch myself from rooftop to rooftop with my big cool launch ability. And I immediately got shot in the face by a sniper and lost all of my momentum and fell down to the ground. It's a D tier. I had a bad time with One Piece World Seeker. It was pretty fucking rough, my dudes. Not good. Maybe Donkey Kong 64 was a D tier. D for Donkey Kong. Maybe. Imagine if fast travel in video games has a quarter chance to not work due to snipers. It was hilarious seeing your enjoyment die in real time. Oh, I'm glad I could help. Frog Detective 1, The Haunted Island. I mean, the Frog Detective games are not AAA experiences. These are not high cinema. These are just super cute games that you could have a great time playing with, like, a literal child. It was cute, it was funny, it was, you know, it was tight. There wasn't really any wasted time wandering around not knowing what to do. It was, like, the puzzles were simple. Like, Frog Detective is the kind of game that instantly pops into my mind of just like, man, if I were a dad, this is the best thing I could possibly ask for. It's an A tier. I liked Frog Detective a lot. It's a real good experience. Who's a better detective, Takayuki Yagami or Frog? I think it might be Frog. Dadcha. Yeah, I don't really expect it to be happening anytime soon, but this is peak game to play with your child. How would Frog Detective handle the Death Note? Oh, he would become best friends with the killer. And they would draw, like, smiley faces all over the Death Note so that there was no more room to write names. Median XL. I played a little more of this year. I got further in than I did last time I played, but not a whole lot further in. I think it suffers a lot from it's a problem with ARPGs in general of how do you give players like end game challenges to approach, because at a certain point, the end game players are probably going to have maxed out gear. Sure. They're probably going to be super high level. Sure. How do you present them with more end game content to experience? And usually the way that ends up working out is, in order to make this content challenging for the most enfranchised players, the content ends up horrendously unbalanced. Just, okay, if you want to try and do this level, you will need like one of these 3 builds, and you're going to need the absolute best gear you can get, and even then, sometimes the enemies are just going to get a lucky hit on you, and you're just going to drop dead, and you're just going to have to deal with that. And I think that's a bad system. Path of Exile has some similar problems. Path of Exile has gotten better about like finding ways of making endgame content both challenging and approachable. But I think Median XL, I think it needs some shaking up for me to want to go back to it. I like it a lot. If you want to have the experience of playing Diablo 2 for the first time again, I think Median XL is a pretty great way to go about it. But it struggles. It struggles for some of the same reasons that the usual suspects of the ARPG genre struggle. I still liked it a lot. I was not as hot on it going back and playing it again, so maybe it's a high B. If you're a fan of action RPGs, like, my default recommendation is still Path of Exile. It's just the best out there. But if you specifically want Diablo 2, Median XL is pretty good. It's hard to mess up Diablo 2. Yeah, Diablo 2 is a classic. It's still fun to go back and play Diablo 2, and Median XL, it feels like Diablo 2, while still having some new stuff and some quality of life stuff and so on and so forth. So I think Median XL is pretty great, but for me personally, I'm bumping it down to a high B because I just didn't love it as much this year. It was I feel like I want to see more done with it before I really dig into it again. A shame they never made a sequel to Diablo 2. One of the first games that I streamed all the way through was Diablo 3, and I like Diablo 3. I think especially after all the changes they made over the years, I had gone in and was I played a Diablo 3 League, and I mean, again, proponent for being a fan. I think League style gameplay is really great for that kind of game. The kind of game where it's like you have really enfranchised players who just play it all the time, and they want something to refresh things, which also offers a way for players to either onboard or, returning players to have something new to come back to. I love leagues, and I think the Diablo 3 League that I played was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot. Is it as good as Path of Exile? No. Is it as good as Median XL? No. But it was still a fun time. Anyways, yeah, Median XL, pretty good, but not amazing. Yakuza Like a Dragon, S tier. I know Dan has been having some problems with it, but he's not a real Yakuza because he's not using a gamepad. Thus, his opinions are invalid, I say in a joking voice. No, I love Yakuza Like a Dragon. I think it is such a fantastic way to, like, shift gears from the brawlers that all of the Yakuza games had been up to this point. And it's like, we're gonna do a turn-based RPG now, inspired by Dragon Quest. And it's like, huh? What? I mean, sure, I guess. And it's like, we want to try something different. And if you only want the action games, then Judgment is right over there. And then the guy who plays Yagami, his agency started being a bunch of punks, so I think they rethought that plan a little bit. So, yeah, Yakuza 7, it does have problems that are a result of it being a new genre in a long-running series. In that, this team had, like, the team that made Yakuza 7 had never done a turn-based RPG before. That, like, I'm sure there were people on that team who had worked on turn-based RPGs, but the team, as a whole, had never done a turn-based RPG like that. So, I think, you know, if you remove every piece of context surrounding Yakuza Like a Dragon, of, you know, every game leading up to it in the Yakuza franchise, the context of it being, you know, this new genre in this long-running series, and all that stuff, if you remove all of that, yeah, it's got a lot of problems. But I think the Yakuza aspects of the game really prop up the weaknesses in the core turn-based combat. Oh no. Dan, you killed him. Right, so, you know, even the Yakuza games sometimes had problems with the core gameplay. You know, sometimes it would just lack a little bit of depth, sometimes you end up with situations where it's like, oh, this character just isn't much fun to play, you know. Horny Baseball Man. Not much fun to actually do the combat with him, but, like, there was a lot of fun to be had with that character because his side stories were interesting, because he was such a different character from the rest of the cast. So you end up with some really interesting stories surrounding him. The chicken racing wasn't great, but it's just such a goofy thing to engage with. The baseball minigame is always, you know, at least fine. I enjoy the baseball minigame they've got going on. Horny Baseball Man was too horny and fun to be fun to play. Yeah. I mean, I appreciated the concept of Horny Baseball Man, and you can see what Shinada was supposed to be like when you play as the Slugger style in Yakuza 0. Like, oh, okay, this is what they were trying to do with a character that is focused on utilizing weapons. Because Shinada just didn't really have a way to actually be good at using the weapons. It was just like, here are some weapons that you always have access to. And beyond that, it's just like, he wasn't really better at using weapons, and in some ways, for some weapons, he was worse at using weapons than other characters. Yakuza 7 is like Kirby Superstar. Not all the content is amazing, but there's still so much to do that it's pretty good. I mean, you know, pretty good, I feel like that is still underrating Yakuza Like a Dragon. The characters are a lot of fun. The city is a lot of fun to explore. The game looks great. The game sounds great. Even though the core gameplay isn't perfect start to finish, I still think there is so much fun to be had with the different classes and, you know, the summons are a lot of fun, like spectacle kind of things. They do a lot to make the core gameplay fun. And then on top of that, you have all of the other content, and the side stories are great. Ichiban is such a fun character, such a great protagonist, and him being a weirdo goofball does not really diminish from the absurdity of the side stories in a way you think it might after playing a whole series with Kazuma Kiryu. But he feels so different and so fresh that it really reinvigorates the series in such a major way. So, sure, I'm rating it so super highly because, in a lot of ways, I'm rating it so highly because of context, you know, rather than purely rating the game itself. But the Yakuza games are my favorite video game series, just like, period. It's so hard for me to rate one of the best games in my favorite series as anything less than an S. All the content is B tier, B plus at least, and S plus in aggregate. Even the quizzes were fun. Yeah, I like the quizzes. Like, it's hard for me to think of stuff in Like a Dragon other than some frustrating combat sequences that are just like, not really into it. Just, I liked it. I like it a whole lot. Yeah, I think that, I do... I would like to just buy Dan a controller so that he could, you know, see, you know, hopefully see what's going on with playing video games on a controller. But aside from that, I do hope that they improve mouse and keyboard type stuff, because, you know, people do play computer games on mouse and keyboard. That's a real thing, and it does suck when that is not good. True Yakuza use controllers with octagonal gates. Hell yeah. All the no-damage Yakuza players use keyboard. I mean, yeah, just digital inputs with that kind of shenanigans seems about right. Anyways. I see that Yakuza 6 is coming up. Do we just do all of the Yakuza talk at once? Or do we spread it out a little bit? Because I played 3 RGG Studios games this year. Most of Yakuza 5 was last year, but Yakuza 5 is down here. They all ended up in a completely arbitrary pile. Did I start Yak 5 last November? Damn, more of it was this year than I thought, if that's the case. Sure, let's bring all the RGG Studios games together. Also, I think that using controllers is so fake that I played Dark Souls 2 at launch with a mouse and keyboard. Yeah, that's insanity. That's buck wild, man. Couldn't be me. But I was never a ride or die PC game player or anything like that. I've always had, like, even when I started getting into PC gaming, I still had a 360. I still got a PS4 and so on. Like I've always appreciated playing games with a controller. Okay. Was Judgment after 6 or before 6? I don't remember. I think Judgment was after 6? So, the other Yakuza games that I've played this year, or rather, the other RGG Studios games that I played this year. It was after 6 because I went in release order. Right. Yakuza 5. One of the biggest complaints about Yakuza 5 is that it's too long. And it is kind of funny that, you know, you have a game where it's like, oh, what's bad about it? Oh, I don't know. There's too much video game in it. Like, I get it. But man, I think Yakuza 5 is a game that becomes so much better playing it after 4. And there is the problem of playing 5 after 4 in that they are similarly structured, and it can be easy to burn yourself out on the series if you go directly from 4 to 5, especially if you're doing a lot of side content. But I love Yakuza 5. It is one of my favorite Yakuza games. Every character except Shinada feels so good to play. I mean, you know, Haruka is, you know, rhythm game shenanigans, and like I enjoyed the rhythm game shenanigans, but Kiryu is like one of the most fun Kiryus to play as was in Yakuza 5. The best Akiyama, the best Saejima. And like Akiyama in Yakuza 5 is one of my favorite combat styles in the entire series. It is so much fun. It is. I like the side campaigns that are present. I mean the Hostess Club stuff is but I liked the hunting. I loved the taxi racing. The baseball was fun. There's a lot of good side content, and even if you don't like some of the side content, you know, there is so much goddamn video game in that video game that it feels like, even more so than 7, it feels hard to really complain about, like, well, you know, some of the side content is bad. And it's like, don't do that side content, do the other side content instead. But I also think that the story was very strong. There is a lot of really exciting and interesting things going on between all of these different characters, and yeah, like Lana was saying, it is so important to the story. There are so many things that happen in 5 that were built up to over the course of you know, the other games leading up to it in the series, and it's like, oh well, of course. But because the series is so big, because these games are so long and have so much content in them, it can be, you know, it makes sense for them to not bring back just a constant stream of things that you need to remember and references and ongoing storylines. But 5 is a game where a lot of the ongoing storylines that they had set up across the rest of the games up to that point really come together in a lot of satisfying ways. You know, Daigo feels like he really earns the chairman position from like what he gets up to in 5. Akiyama finds ways to cement himself as, you know, a do-gooder on a grander scale, I guess. Like, Akiyama ends up in a really weird position after 5, and Akiyama in 6 is kind of a weird thing, but his story feels very satisfying. Saijima's story feels like the storylines of all of these characters feels like there are a lot of satisfying conclusions to characters. And for as many new things are introduced, it feels like they are all handled in really great ways. It's a great game. And yeah, I mean, if you are playing all of the games back to back to back, then yeah, by 5 you might be a little burnt out. And if that's the case, you just focus on the story. It's the same thing as with 3. Like, you know, after 0, 1, and 2, if 3 isn't hitting for you, you could just, like, really just blitz through the story and not really pay much attention to the side stuff. Or, you know, watch a playthrough of it or something, but I think I'm such a nerd, I'm such a fan of these games that it's so hard for me to be like, you could just skip this one. Because even 3, which is broadly the worst of all of these games, it sets up the events of 4, 5, and 6 in a way that still makes it feel valuable, and it still earns its place in a way. Some of the highest highs and some of the lowest lows in the series. I think, yeah. Overall, yeah. It's great. I love Yakuza 5. The lows of 5 broadly didn't bother me, so. 6. How about that Dragon Engine, huh? The Dragon Engine... Boy. There are a lot of things that I like about the Dragon Engine in the games that use it better. Like, I really like the Dragon Engine in Kiwami 2. But 6, the combat in 6 feels mushy. It does not have the same level of finesse, especially coming off of Yakuza 5, which feels like a really well-honed version of the old engine. You know, not quite as good as 0, but the combat in 5 generally felt tight. It felt fast. It felt like it had weight to it. 6, not so much. 6 felt a little more sandbaggy. It felt like your actions did not have as much impact. And that definitely drags down the game as a whole. I think overall, I think 6 might be underrated. I think 6 is still a really great experience overall. The baseball manager stuff, the harpoon fisher arcade game, that nonsense, like, there's a lot of... It still has so much of the fun side content that you want. And it's not like the combat is bad. It's just not as good, especially compared to previous games that you had played. Dragon Engine is fine, but it's not a good engine for Kiryu's fighting style. Yeah, there are problems with Kiryu's combat in 6. I liked the story of 6 a whole lot. I think it does a fantastic job of being the ending to Kiryu's storyline. Like, the game was designed to be Kiryu's swan song. It is the end of the storyline that started, you know, in 1, you know. 0 is kind of a weird thing where it's just like, technically that's where the story started, but, you know, prequels, they can kind of be weird, but 6 felt like a game that did a good job of concluding the story of Kazuma Kiryu. And it feels so much like a game where they went, alright, what if we did Yakuza 3 again, but better? Thanks for streaming. Yeah, I mean, I still like the song, whether it's a hold-on-screen song or not. But yeah, 6 feels like the kind of story and the kind of experience that they wanted 3 to be. And I think they nailed it. It does a really great job of giving you a small town kind of feeling where your main allies are a bunch of like small-time goobers, small-time losers, and you're still escalating into, you know, government conspiracy and all that nonsense, but it was a story that I think was well told it was a story about family. It was a story about fatherhood. It was a story about how Kiryu had lived his life. And I think that stuff landed really, really well. I think it was a fun game to play. It's a good Yakuza game. It's great. I'm putting it up there in S. I talked myself into it. They succeeded in making their smaller scope story where Kiryu accidentally uncovers a conspiracy at the highest levels of government. Yeah, Kiryu accidentally unveils, like, a secret battleship that causes the entire government to collapse, basically. I can't get over the disrespect they did to Daigo with his super secret rare card code. Oh yeah, what was it? It was like, help me Kiryu, or something. Please help me Kiryu. Poor Daigo. I like Daigo. I like Daigo Dojima. You know, so many of these games, he's put into situations where it seems like he is just fucking up and making bad decisions, and it's like, it's not Daigo's fault, really. It's just, we need a way for there to be a conflict in this game. The ending of 6 with the letter. Yeah, the letter's great. Yeah, That game is great. I like Yakuza 6 a lot. It's not one of the best, but it's a real good one. Judgment. Oh boy. Now, I feel like I err on the side of overrating Yakuza 6, perhaps. How about an RGG Studios game that I will err on the side of underrating? Because, man, I did not jive with the experience of playing through Judgment. Streaming it didn't really make me enjoy it more, but taking both my first playthrough where I tried to do, most of the stuff. I did the bonus boss fight and all the side stories and all that jazz. I didn't love it. It's got a lot of problems. I feel like both of Yagami's combat styles are not that much fun to use. I feel like they feel super floaty. I felt like I lost control of my character very often. And the route for, it did not feel like I had a good way of making my character feel substantially more powerful over the course of the game. But yeah, it is one of the best main stories in a Yakuza game. They fucking nailed the feeling of a hard-boiled, action-themed detective story. There were twists, there were turns, there were surprise reveals, there were shocking moments, and a lot of well-written dialogue and really interesting storytelling. The main story of Judgment is fantastic. And there's a lot of, overall, there's a lot of great writing in so many of these games, and the writing of the side content in Judgment is still fun. It's still fun to do side stuff. But so many of the mini games that the game gives you just fucking suck. Tailing missions just fucking suck. And they did nothing to make the tailing missions fun in a way that they make that kind of activity fun in some of these other games. The chases were alright, but that's, you could get the same fun from doing those chases in some of the other games. It wasn't great. The photo sub-stories were annoying, because sometimes it would just be really esoteric what the game expected of you to actually do that. The VR board game shit was awful. Oh my god, I hated that so much. There were so many things in Judgment that I just did not like. I think the main story for Judgment still keeps it somewhere in the B tiers, But I just did not love playing it. Drone racing rules, but it's the only thing to do that isn't the detective stuff. Yeah, and even the drone racing, after doing all of the drone racing stuff on my first playthrough, by the time I was done drone racing, I was pretty done with drone racing. You enjoyed Dyson Cube? More power to you. If you enjoy the tailing missions, if you enjoy Dyson Cube, if you enjoy any of that stuff, great. I'm happy for you. I did not enjoy that stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of really fun characters, Higashi. I love Higashi. Thank you, Steve Bloom, for showing up. I love Kaito. I like the characters a lot. And the story was fantastic. But just... I liked the combat in Judgment. I think I liked the combat in Judgment less than I liked the combat in 3. I'm so excited to see you play Lost Judgment. I'm so excited to play Lost Judgment. It is getting pushed back because I gotta get to Like a Dragon Gaiden, and I got to get to Infinite Finances sooner than later. And I don't want to rush through Like a Dragon, so it's gonna be a bit. But I still need to play Like a Dragon Ishin. I still need to play Lost Judgment. I'm looking forward to both of them. But it's gonna be a bit. Rhythm Heaven Fever. Frustrating in some ways because, like, what you need to do for certain songs can be, like, so particular, and like, sometimes you'll end up just, oh, you missed this one note? Yeah, do the whole thing over again. So, as a game, it could be frustrating in terms of just, like, you know, clear win-loss conditions, clear feedback, and stuff like that. It could be better. But it's a rhythm game classic. You know, there are reasons why there are so many, you know, memes and remakes of the mini games from Rhythm Heaven Fever, because they're classic, they're catchy, they're fun to play. You know, the remixes, all that stuff, and they do a really good job of mixing up what you are expected to do over the course of, you know, there's a bunch of these of levels, there's a bunch of mini games that you got to do, and it's like, you have two buttons. You have A and B. Sometimes you need to hold one of them, sometimes you need to hold both of them. Sometimes you just need to press them. Good luck. Very fun game. I'm sad that I did not get a perfect on Ringside Interview, because I felt so confident going in. I didn't want to talk myself up going into it. I just wanted to let it hit that it's like, oh damn, Hat knows the hell out of this one. And I feel like I did do pretty well, but you know, there were some where, you know, into you, all about you, all about you, all about you, all about you. There were a couple of levels that were pretty rough. And also, it's hard for me to just jump into playing a rhythm game because of my audio setup. I don't know if there is a way to remove the audio delay if I am piping my audio through Voicemeeter, but if there is, I haven't figured it out yet. So, Rhythm Heaven Fever. Hey, I liked it. Dungeon Mans! Oh god, I've been going for... Well, yeah, I do need to speed up on a couple of these. Dungeon Mans. So, I went through a pretty big stint of playing a bunch of roguelikes. And some of them worked out better than others. So let's pile them all together here. So, is Cruelty Squad a roguelike? Yeah, I think these were the four main ones that I played in terms of traditional roguelikes. I like roguelikes. Broadly speaking, I like roguelikes. I rarely ever feel confident and competent when it comes to the gameplay of these games. I feel like I am often not paying enough attention to smaller details. I feel like I am often lacking in knowledge to form functional builds in the long run of some of these games. You know, so often I will end up struggling in these games because the optimal choice to make in a lot of these games is usually give yourself a truckload of options so that you can handle any scenario that you are presented with. And usually in that kind of game, if I am expected to be utilizing and maintaining and keeping track of, 10 different abilities and 15 cooldowns and all of this nonsense, I'll usually fall off before I really start reaching into the late game of these kinds of games. So, let's start with Dungeons of Dreadmore, because Dungeons of Dreadmore is a roguelike that I have been trying to like for a long-ass time now. I don't remember when Dungeons of Dreadmore first came out. That game has been out for a hot minute, and for the entirety that it has been out, it has always been, it's alright. It's finicky to play. It can really slow down in some major ways as you get deeper into the game. The feedback of what actually makes a good investment in terms of where you're putting your levels, what skills you are getting from your level ups, and what among those are actually good and helping you in a substantial way. I feel like that kind of stuff, it struggles with that kind of thing, because there are some skills where it's just oh man, I got this skill, I'm just blasting through the first 3 or 4 floors, and then after the first 3 or 4 floors, you just get put completely in the dumpster. And it can be really difficult to tell what you did wrong. So, it's a game that I keep going back to because maybe this time it'll click, maybe this time I'll love it, and I never do. So, it's hanging out down in the C tiers. Dungeon Mans has a lot of interesting things going on. The way that you can, pretty freely multi-class, the roguelite aspects of it, you're expected to die before you finish a run, and the ways that you can carry over progress from one run to the next. I think it did a lot of interesting things with that kind of stuff. And I am interested in seeing more of those kinds of mechanics being experimented with in other traditional roguelike styled games. But there's a couple of weird things about the way that it's designed. I think one of the most notable is not having an auto-explore button. I understand that the developer's intention behind that was, well, if you're just auto-exploring all the time, then you're not actually paying attention to any of the environments, so why even bother? It's yeah, but I want to know if I missed a spot because this map is big, and I don't want to have to mash on the numpad to bump my idiot explorer all the way across the map to see if I missed something interesting. So it's it has some frustrating things. It also has... It can be difficult to truly get a grasp of where you are at in terms of progression, both over the course of a run and in the long term, because one of the biggest problems that so many of these roguelikes have is having drastic jumps in difficulty part way through a run that takes you several hours to get to. So you have a run that's going pretty good, and you've sunk 3, maybe 4 hours into this run, and that's like a shorter roguelike. That kind of runtime is like, wow, this game really speeds you through it. You get through, you get that far in, and then you just get like completely chunked by an enemy. They just take you out in like 3 or 4 hits, and everything leading up to that enemy wasn't a particular problem. And then you have this one enemy that just beats your ass. Dungeons of Dreadmore was awful about this. But that kind of moment can be really frustrating because either, like, the game clearly wants you to be paying active attention at all times. You always have to be assessing threats because you never know when danger could strike. But the reality of the situation is, if everything in an area is not a problem or a threat, and then you get to the end, and the enemy at the end is going to kill you in 3 hits, that fucking sucks. It feels bad. Oh, Tales of Maj'Eyal. Where is that? I also played that. We'll get to Tome. But Tome does also have that problem. So Dungeon Man's it does a lot of interesting things. I don't know if I'm ever going to go back to it because I think the build variety and the way that, like, I don't think I loved enough of the builds that you can do in that game to want to go back. It's not bad. I think it does a lot of interesting things. I think it is a low B, maybe a high C. Let's do Tangle Deep next. Tangle Deep also has a lot of cool roguelite meta progression type stuff going on. And you can just play the game entirely as a, more of a mystery dungeon kind of thing where if you die, you just get sent back to the start and you give it another go. It's a game that I want to like a lot more than I do, which I guess is kind of a running theme. Part of the problem that I have with a lot of roguelikes is that it can be really difficult to get a good feel of what a good build is. What points should I be putting where? How are these points affecting me? How much better am I? How much more powerful am I becoming over the course of a run? How much am I learning about my character and my skills and all of that jazz? And it can be really difficult to have a good amount of depth in one of these games without feeling overwhelming. But I think Tangle Deep tried to simplify certain things too much, and as a result, the depth of it felt flatter than it actually was, I believe. And it also has some frustrating things of just like, it has the Pokemon problem of, oh, you want to weaken this enemy in order to capture it, but then, oh no, you did a little too much damage, or something else did damage to it, and then it died. Sorry. And it has a lot of weird subsystems that have cool things going on, but I don't think they all mesh together into a full product that I really wanted to engage with more. It's not bad. I just don't think it clicked with me, all in all. Caves of Cud. Now you talk about depth. Holy cannoli. Caves of Cud has what feels like an infinite amount of things going on at all times. There is such a variety to the shit going on in Caves of Cud, and this applies to both the player and the environment. There's a lot of weirdo enemies and scenarios that you could end up in that warrant dealing with them in a variety of ways. And you can be really creative when dealing with all of these situations. Sorry, my throat is getting a little dry. Yeah, so Caves of Cud has, like, some of the most jarring instances of getting one shot out of nowhere. And Tales of Maj'Eyal also has this problem. But Caves of Cud, there's so many cool, interesting things going on in this game. There are so many weird, cool builds that you can put together. You know, you can put together a fighter that has extra arms, so that way you can put an axe into each of these arms, and then you, like, make them better at dual wielding, so they attack with each of those axes faster. And then you give them a chance to, whenever they successfully hit an enemy with an attack with an axe, you have a chance of just dismembering a random limb. And then it's like, okay, so you just become a complete whirlwind of axes, and you go up and you just bump into an enemy to attack them, and it's just like, you decapitated their head, their leg, and 2 of their arms. Great! I'm so good and powerful and strong. But because it can be difficult to know exactly the progression of where you're supposed to go, because you can end up, like, in some of the first areas that the game sends you, sometimes, just due to procedural generation, those areas will be way more dangerous than they would be otherwise. And sometimes, like, one of the first areas that you're expected to go to has this underground cave system that connects back to the starting town. And that underground cave system is fucking gigantic and can take hours of exploration to get through. But because you're, like, you can reach the depths of that cave system, that just everything becomes such an immense threat. And unless you're walking around and, like, examining every enemy that you're coming across, you can be completely blindsided by, oh, this enemy is, like, way strong, and it just one-shot me from across the room. That sucks. And that's just a problem with roguelikes in general, but I think Caves of Cud suffers a bit from being so open in its exploration while still having those problems of it is often too easy to wander into a situation as a new player that you have absolutely no chance of resolving yourself. And, oh, get good. Fuck off. It was a learning experience. I don't even know what killed me. I've been playing for 2.5 hours. Like... But yes, they did introduce a system that removes permadeath, and that's great. Love that, because then you can really dig into, learning the systems, like getting a better feel for what skills are useful for a build and what skills aren't. And also just getting to see more of the game. You know, if you're bad at this kind of game, then you're often just like SOL, just like, oh man, I wish I knew what was beyond Red Rock, but I guess I never will. So yeah, Caves of Qud still has a lot of the same roguelike problems, but... Oh, also, relatively recently, they introduced the option to use a new UI, and I think the new UI is taking the game... Like, it is bringing the game in the direction of being much more approachable, much more user-friendly. I think the new UI is generally pretty great, and I'm looking forward to seeing them continuing to improve it over time. Caves of Qud, I'm putting into B tier. I like it. I also like Tales of Maj'Eyal. I beat Tales of Maj'Eyal for the first time this year. I beat it. I beat the game. I beat a roguelike. A traditional roguelike. Now, I was playing on normal mode, which theoretically would not be super difficult, but actually can be more difficult than the hard mode sometimes for a weird reason. But I beat it, and I felt really great about beating it. I felt like I really fought tooth and nail, and I was using my abilities I was using my abilities well, and I had a good, loadout of equipment that, maybe it wasn't the most optimal equipment that I could have been using, but I felt like I chose my equipment. I felt like I made good decisions when it came to choosing my equipment. Now, the problem is, I used a build guide. I used a guide for, here are generally the skills that you want to put points into, because if you put extra points into this, you get, hugely diminishing returns, and it's just not worth it. Balancing problems. That sucks. But these games are already so hard that just wasting points is often not really something you can afford to do. I was also playing on normal mode, and normal mode gives you a couple of extra lives. And so there is a bit of a diminishing sensation of hell yeah, I beat Tales of Maj'Eyal. I beat a traditional roguelike, and I beat it on the normal difficulty. I wasn't playing on whatever easy mode they had available. I was playing on the normal difficulty. But I was using a build. I had extra lives. So, it's still not, as massive a thing as just ooh, I beat NetHack. But I feel like overall, Tales of Maj'Eyal does, at the moment, it does the best job of harnessing what is good about, what's engaging about the more traditional roguelikes, while also implementing a lot of modern game design to make it more accessible, more approachable, and just more reasonable about its design. Later, Neo. Yeah, I'll be posting the finished tier list on Discord, and of course the VOD will be there as well. Yeah, I don't feel that bad about using builds in games, especially games that are so knowledge-driven, Path of Exile. I can still thoroughly enjoy Path of Exile, start to finish, not using a build. But part of that is a lot of accumulated knowledge. I think it is possible to enjoy Path of Exile from start to finish without using a build as a new player. But, that kind of game and this kind of game, action RPGs or ARPGs, just to more refine it into like Diablo games and traditional roguelikes, they will often have some kind of exclusive content that you can only access if you have a really great build. And as someone who does not take naturally to the kinds of system interactions and game knowledge that you often need to make a successful build in this kind of game, and not to say that, you know, these games are too complicated. I think there is a lot of benefit to there being so much depth in these games and so much depth to the mechanics. But as a result, I don't really feel bad for someone else doing the research for me. Just like, you know, hey, these level ups are the good ones, and what you probably want a lot of this kind of stat. You know, keep on the lookout for this kind of gear, these specific unique pieces of gear. If you can get your hands on them, great, you're gonna love them. I don't really feel bad about engaging with these kinds of games in that way. It still feels like, if I were good enough, I could have beaten it with like coming up with my own build or something like that. But I'm only gonna get so hung up on that kind of thing. I like Tales of Maj'Isle a lot. I think it barely ekes out over Caves of Qud. Like, both of these could easily bump up to an A tier. I think they're very much on the cusp of like B+, A- kind of thing. I like them both a lot, and the fact that they have the accessibility options of just like, just turn off permadeath. You just get infinite extra lives. I think both of these games are really good options if you want to try a traditional roguelike. I think they're good. Do you see how many games are on this list? You can only be capital G good at so many of them. Yeah, well, when you put it that way. I enjoy being pretty good at video games. It is rare that I ever feel the desire to be great at a video game, to be like at a competitive level in a video game. Going back to RuneScape for a minute, high-level RuneScape combat, there's a lot of depth to it. I really appreciate the level of technical skill that you can reach to like really just be very good at RuneScape combat. I think high-level RuneScape combat sucks. I think the majority of high-level RuneScape combat content is broadly poorly designed because so much of the game is designed around, you know, you're playing rock, paper, scissors against an opponent, and you need to make sure that you have your rock shield up when your opponent plays rock. And if your opponent plays rock unexpectedly, then they can take out fucking half of your health bar in an instant. And man, I hella do not care enough about RuneScape content to get outright good at that kind of thing. Hat's got to develop mastery in these games in 3 days each on average. Yeah. I feel like, broadly speaking, I am good at video games. And I enjoy getting better at video games. But I also just enjoy the variety of playing new games such that it is rare that I will feel the need to, you know, put a bunch of time into just getting really good at a game. And that happens.
I don't understand what's going on here.
Just be better at analysis and reaction speed, and also instantly wikiing information. Yeah. Anyways. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. I liked Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart a whole lot. I think that it did suffer in comparison to a lot of the other Ratchet and Clank games in terms of I don't think the weapons got crazy and fun enough in comparison to the older games. I think that they played it a little too safe when it came to weapons. There were a lot of returning weapons, a lot of weapons that were very basic in terms of their functionality. And that's a shame, but I liked the story quite a lot. I thought it was a beautiful game. Oh my god, when you get the full graphics experience going on, it's like, okay, I understand the PS5 now. I get it. That Lombax looks wet. I love it. And I also think I would love to see Rivet return. I think she is a fantastic character. I really liked what she had going on, and her design is really nice, and I would like to see more of her. I would like to see more Ratchet and Clank. I like it a lot. Did I like it S tier? Probably. I do think that some of the worlds were not like, I feel like some of the worlds could have been more fun to explore. Some of them were a little too open, some of them were a little too linear. You know, you gotta find a balance. And I think maybe Rift Apart could be a high A. Nah, I like Rivet too much. It was a great game. I liked it a lot, and I would like to play. I would like to play more Ratchet and Clank games, please, Insomniac, thank you. Maybe I'll play some of those Spider-Man's games, but there is a 0% chance that I care about a Spider-Man game as much. There is a 0% chance that I care as much about a good Spider-Man game as I care about a mediocre Ratchet and Clank game. Should see some of the concepts they had for her. Yeah, no, I have, and it's great. The way they ended Rift Apart, I feel like they could... I feel like they would benefit from doing more interesting stuff with Lombaxes and so on. Or at least with these two. Because now you've got the dimensional hopping capability stuff going on. I like it. It's great. You can tell they love Spider-Man. I appreciate loving Spider-Man. You know what I love? Rivet. Anyways. Oh man, we got a couple of heavy hitters here. Baldur's Gate 3! I still need to play this game. CRPGs are another genre that I enjoy a whole heck of a lot, and wish that I had the patience and attention span to get better at. Because there is so much mechanical depth in a good CRPG that there are so many times where you can just have eureka moments of just like, oh shit, if I use this, then my damage output doubles because of this weird interaction. I like it a lot. I think it is one of, if not the... I think it is the best CRPG, broadly speaking. I mean, if you include Disco Elysium in the CRPG genre, then it's more of a contender. It's more contentious, rather. But Baldur's Gate 3 is a truly fantastic video game. There are so many fun interactions and ways to engage with so many of these different scenarios. I think that some of the balance, like some of the character balance and build balance, could be a little better. And I think they could get across what makes certain things good a little better, I guess. But it is a game that I have had a hell of a lot of fun playing. My character, my Tav, I guess, as people refer to them, I have had a lot of fun with that my player character's storyline over the course of the game, which can be difficult to achieve. It can be rare, where you've got to create a character kind of thing in an RPG, and you've got a lot of decisions to be making over the course of the game. But even then, in those situations, you still feel like you are following the story. Wait, no, don't do that. Testing, 1, 2. I fixed it. Okay, so... Right, what I was saying was, it can be rare to have to... Other way around. It feels very common, even in these, like, create a character, decision-oriented RPGs with, like, a lot of choices and turning points, and so on. It still will often feel like you are following the story. In the Mass Effect games, a lot of things that you can do to change various things, but it still feels like, Commander Shepard is following the story of Mass Effect. But Baldur's Gate 3 is one of the first times in a CRPG. Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous also managed to achieve this pretty well. But it can be very rare for me to feel like I am following my character's story. Like, my player character that I created is... I am developing their story over the course of the game. And so, my character... Over the course of the game, I tried to play them as a character who... Very sociable. They're a warlock. So, they've got high charisma, they've got good social stats, good social skills. Very personable. And very persuasive. And they are generally trying to do the right thing. Like, they are at least trying to be a good person. And they are trying to help. And sometimes they just don't have a whole lot of foresight going on. Sometimes the decisions they made in order to help are very, alright, I will do this thing to help this person right now. And I have a feeling that's going to cause a problem for me later, but this is what I'm doing right now. And I am going to live with the consequences of that decision. Yeah, Disco Elysium is another great example of this kind of thing. Of... more and more of my character's decisions, I would be feeling the repercussions of these decisions. And so... there is a certain point... my character will use what, like, they will use whatever they can to do the right thing. And so they have been generally willing to work with evil people in order to achieve a good outcome, you know? Ends justify the means, but in the reverse, or like, ends justify the means, but not exactly, like, I don't know. It's been weird and it's been fun, and I feel a connection to my warlock character. I feel the weight of the decisions that I have made over the course of the game, the character that I have made over the course of the game, and what they are capable of doing. You know, they will use mind manipulating magic in order to convince someone to not do a bad thing. You know, I'm still mind controlling them. And so the whole story of the game... Oh no. Dun-dun-dun. Testing, 1, 2. So I will still... Oh no. The captioner breaking made me lose my train of thought. But yeah, it is so much fun. It is so engaging. I felt connected to my character. I felt like decisions I was making would matter. But, and here is the reason why I have not finished the game yet. That game is too fucking big. And I think part of it is actually like a flaw, like something of a flaw in the design. I think that Act 3, the part of Baldur's Gate 3 where you actually get to Baldur's Gate, I think that part of the game is genuinely too open. I think it is so easy to end up stumbling over 20 new quests and the continuation of 5 quests that you haven't thought about in 50 hours of gameplay. And as someone that will often struggle with executive dysfunction, decision paralysis kinds of issues with my brain, that situation is genuinely a problem for me. It became a situation where I was overwhelmed and I could not continue to play at the time. My headspace could just not accommodate for, oh Jesus Christ, I have like 15 different quests that I could go progress right now. And at that point in the game, it is very easy to hit maximum level. And once you hit max level, a lot of smaller scenarios will lose some amount of their impact. It's so easy for a game to put you in a situation where you reach maximum level and the thought starts digging into your brain of, well, I'm already max level, I guess I'm pretty, like, at least I guess I might as well go finish the game, because I'm not going to progress my character anymore. I'm not going to get to make any more exciting decisions. Like, from here on out, my character is going to play relatively similarly because I'm not going to acquire any more substantial increases in power. And losing out on that carrot on a stick kind of thing can genuinely be a problem. But even with that issue of, oh man, you gave me too much game in this game, I don't like it anymore, I still love it. I still love it. And I think the overarching story is interesting and engaging, and I'm really curious to see how it shakes out, especially with my team as I have crafted it and the decisions that I have made over the course of the game. I'm excited to keep playing once I can, get my brain in the right space for it. But the writing was so much of what really kept me going for a while there. The writing is great. There are so many different ways to handle so many different situations and reactions to things that you wouldn't expect. Things being brought up, just a lot of really good threads being tugged, and the return of characters that you haven't thought about in a while. Like a decision that you made back in Act 1 coming back. Story and items are motivation at that point. So items, that's another thing that I kind of struggle with when it comes to the gameplay of Baldur's Gate 3. I felt like I was not being clever enough for the game in some ways. Eventually I just did a bit of peeking around online to see how people were building their Eldritch Blast Warlock characters, and it's just oh yeah, obviously you want this item. And I'm like, oh, what does the item do? Well, it says it does this, but actually, in practical terms, it does this and doubles your damage output. And I'm like, oh fuck. I had this item since Act 1, and I didn't even know. I didn't even realize what I was carrying around this whole time. But the game gives you so fucking many items, and so many of these items come across as very similar in functionality that I think in some ways getting new loot kind of loses its appeal, which is buck wild for an RPG to actually achieve that, but it's easy to, by the time you get to Act 3, end up with all of your characters having, a set of gear that's just this gear, I would probably be fine just using this exact loadout on all of these characters for the rest of the game. And sometimes the prospect of oh, I got this new piece of gear that does something really interesting, but in order to actually utilize the interesting thing about it, I would need to completely rebuild all, everything about the character's equipment. I would have to just get them a completely different equipment loadout, top to bottom. And sometimes, often, I just don't care enough. Oh my god. I'm so sorry, Dan, that the captioner keeps dying. It's not my fault. Sorry. My throat is drying the hell out right now. I don't know why. So, Baldur's Gate 3. I could keep talking about Baldur's Gate 3 for another hour. Obviously, it's in the S tier. It is a fantastic video game. And I feel like I absolutely got a full game's worth of enjoyment out of it, even if I were to never go back and finish it. I want to go back and finish it, and I am interested in seeing what the what multiplayer might be like. So I might goof around with Dan in it for a bit and see how that goes, because it's a great game and I like it a lot. But I do believe that it is a genuine problem that Act 3 is so excessively open. I would have liked getting to Act 3 a little more if certain things, not everything, but if certain things going on in Act 3 had a little more guidance and were a little more directed. But I say that, and then, like, some of the most interesting things that I have done in Act 3 have been because I am doing certain things out of order. So, I mean, I say that, but I guess I am putting a lot of stock in the fact that the overwhelming openness was the reason why I stopped playing the game, but it did still result in some interesting situations, interesting scenarios, and stuff that I have enjoyed. So, it's weird. Hi-Fi Rush! It's one of my favorite video games of all time. It is an absolute delight start to finish. It looks great, it sounds great, it plays great. It is an exciting innovation on a genre of video game that rewards player skill in ways that a lot of other games fail to. It is an incredible story that has genuinely touching moments that made me laugh, that made me feel invested in the outcome of, invested in what these characters feel and their opinions on the situation and what the situation is and what it represents. And it is, I could blab on about everything I love about the game, but I feel like I get the point across better by just saying it is a rhythm-based character action game that works perfectly, and it is one of my favorite video games of all time. That's it. It's the top of the S tier. It is a true monument to what you can achieve with good game design. And now that that's over, are you ready for a hot take? I didn't like Link to the Past that much. I'm filing Link to the Past into the same broad category as Final Fantasy VI, where I respect what the game was when it came out. I respect what people see in the game and why people enjoy it. However, as someone that has played a fuckload of video games over the course of my life, and I did not play Link to the Past when it was still relatively new, before I had played so many other Zelda games and games like the Zelda series, I feel like so many of the most interesting things that Link to the Past does are done much better in subsequent Zelda games, and seeing past some of those, not seeing past, but the fact that I was not impressed by the things that it does well, because a lot of the things that it does well are just kind of expected of the average Zelda game at this point. I feel like the things that it does well did not overcome the problems that I had that they have solved in later Zelda games. How long are you planning to go? You might need a part 2. I have been talking about a lot of these games for quite a while. Jeez. We've still got maybe another hour and a half or so, maybe. We'll get there. We'll get there. Because there's a couple of games coming up on this list that I do not have nearly as much to say about. Where do you rate Link having pink hair amongst the other Links? I like pink hair Link. And, like, Link to the Past is not a bad game. But I didn't love it. There were a lot of things that frustrated me, like the warp points between worlds. In order to get this heart piece, you need to know that you need to warp while standing here in the Dark World or whatever. Frustrating moments. A lot of frustrating moments that I understand, like, that kind of thing is just like, oh man, you're supposed to just, do a bunch of exploration and enjoy finding all these secrets and stuff. And there were a lot of parts where I just did not enjoy the exploration, especially as much as I enjoyed similar things. Like, I did myself a disservice in terms of my enjoyment of Link to the Past by having played Link Between Worlds, which I generally feel did so many of the things that Link to the Past did well, but did fewer things that Link to the Past did poorly. The Dark World map warp things you're meant to know to do by looking at spots in the light world and knowing you can get there directly. If you can't get there directly, then look in the dark world to see if there's a location you can warp to, and vice versa. Yeah, but the process of doing that is annoying and takes a while. Wolf Link or Bunny Link? I mean, Bunny Link was anthropomorphic, so points for that. But also, Wolf Link is a really cool design. I like Wolf Link's design more. I like that kind of exploration. I don't know. I'm probably just being too harsh on it. Take it with a grain of salt. But I did not have an amazing time with Link to the Past. I thought it was okay. We love Katamari! I love Katamari. It's not as good as Katamari Damacy, but it's still a lot of fun. It's still Katamari, baby. You're still rolling it up. You got the king being a goofball. I was expecting you to jump to Tears of the Kingdom. No, not yet. We love Katamari. Maybe a low A, maybe a high B. Katamari benefits a whole lot in terms of, like, its tier placement by being just so simple and so just flat enjoyable. Like, you go through, you play through We Love Katamari, maybe you'll get, like, super good rankings on some of the levels. You can go back and get better rankings if you want, but just playing that game start to finish is just a joy. And it's just a delight. Hey, I know some people are going to be excited about this. It's Sonic Roboblast Kart 2! Sonic Roboblast 2 Kart. Whatever. It's karts! So, one of my friend groups was completely obsessed with this game for quite a while. They were making custom characters for it. They were, like, constantly configuring, like, they made their own private server and started tinkering around with, like, what maps do we like, and some people started digging into, like, individual level times, just, like, trying to, like, really grinding out, practicing on levels and stuff like that. And I think eventually the situation kind of burned itself out a little bit. But aside from all of that, I think it is a very fun kart racer. I enjoyed playing Sonic Karts quite a lot. I did not really engage with it to the point that I didn't grind out any ILs. I didn't practice I didn't like do any practice on my own. I didn't play super regularly. But what I did play was a lot of fun. Like, it can be fun to just play a kart racer with your friends and, hit each other with blue shells or whatever. Honestly, I kind of wish when I did play, that there were more bad levels. And just, like, getting to see more of that kind of thing. Like, more variety in the levels of just, like, sometimes you would get into a groove of everyone would just choose, like, oh, I like this level, and then they just choose that level, and then, you do that 6 times in a row. It's like, well, yeah, I like these levels too, but we've played these couple of levels every time we've played, and I think I think I would have gotten value out of playing more bad levels, I guess. Rogue Tower! I wanted to cut myself off there and say, kinda sucks, but I don't really feel that strongly about my overall negative opinion of Rogue Tower. I think that the meta progression systems in Rogue Tower are generally bad. And I think the game suffers a lot from like, the way that you build your levels, and how you just, like, if you have multiple lanes, then you just choose which lane to add a tile onto. I think that kind of thing caused more problems than the variety it introduced was worth. It's hard for me to get over, like, the core problem that I had with the game of the meta progression stuff just being so bad. Because there were a lot of towers that just felt like they were just bad. And so there were some situations where it's like, yeah, you gotta unlock this bad upgrade if you want to unlock this other good upgrade, because you need to unlock X number of upgrades in order to be allowed to pick this upgrade. So it's just like, I guess I'll pick the bad upgrade. And then you're playing the run, and because your selection of upgrades is random, sometimes it's just like, oh, hey, look, it's all of the bad upgrades that I was forced to take in order to take the good upgrades, all lined up in a row for me. I also don't think that the actual core of the tower defense gameplay was as much fun as I wanted it to be. It was alright, but I mean, it was no Gemcraft, that's for sure. Yeah, I think Rogue Tower is going into D tier. Hey, Elden Ring! I gave myself brain poison playing Elden Ring this year because I downloaded a mod that marks all non-respawning items on the map. Oh my god. There are so many fucking items in Elden Ring. It's a lot. And the way that I was kind of approaching the game was I was kind of treating it as like not quite a second screen game, but I had stuff on the other screen that I was paying more attention to than I might otherwise when it comes to that kind of game. But I was generally enjoying just like going to the map and seeing that I have collected all of the things in an area. Doing that kind of thing is fun, and I do want to return to that, so that way I can have myself set up with a character that basically, like, that is just super ready. I want to have a character that is absolutely good to go when the DLC drops. That's my plan. I'm looking forward to the DLC quite a lot. And Elden Ring was one of my favorite games of last year. It's still a fantastic FromSoft game. It's not the best FromSoft game on this list, I think. There's DLC announced? Yeah, Shadows of the Erd Tree, I think is the name of it. I don't think there is much detail about it available, but there is DLC coming out for Elden Ring. So, Elden Ring. I like Elden Ring a lot. Even though I brain poisoned myself on it, we're still putting it up in S tier. Like that game a lot. Hey, you want to know the better FromSoft game that I played this year? Man, Armored Core 6 is so fucking good. Incredible build variety. Looks great, sounds great. Really engaging story. Extremely cool set pieces, likable characters. Like, incredible customization options. Like, this is a game that you really feel like your mech is your own. What leg type did you focus on? Oh, I chose the big jump legs. The reverse joint. Hat was going so fast. Yeah, like, just talking about Armored Core 6 with other folks who played Armored Core 6 was such a great example of how good the design was in that game. Like, so many people that I talked to did such different approaches to the game. Like, Asp over there, just like, all in on heavy weapons. Just like, sometimes he did like glass cannon-y stuff, but it was mostly just like, how many gigantic explosions can I fit onto my mech? And meanwhile, I am just like, I am zip zooming, I am like all in on mobility. I just want to be fast, I want to be hard to hit, and I want to like, I want to fight at mid-range and wear the enemy down until I can go in for a big hit with my cool sword. And by the end of the game, I really felt like the mech that I had used, like, I changed a few parts here and there, but it really felt like my mech. It felt, I felt ownership over the design. I felt like... It felt like the decisions that I had made when it came to how I designed my mech and how I utilized it. I felt ownership over that. I felt like it really rewarded me for, like, not just playing the way that I wanted to play, but finding, like, experimenting with the way that I played the game. And, you know, hey, you're having a lot of trouble against this enemy with this loadout that you've been using for the past couple of levels. You've unlocked some new guns. Why don't you try, like, maybe you could go and try out, like, some submachine guns, maybe try the Gatling gun, like, because the feedback in that game was also really, really good. You felt like, it felt like the game gave you a lot of, it felt like it gave you good feedback on what was working and why. So early on, like, I switched from linear rifles to, or like, at a certain point, I switched from single-fire weapons to more just, like, you know, burst fire or fully automatic or something like that. I switched to something that I can just, like, hold down the trigger on, because things started getting so much faster that I needed to spend more time focusing on dodging. So, for my style of gameplay, what ended up, like, I slowly shifted into, you know, I changed the way that I was playing in reaction to what the game was presenting me with, but it did not feel like I had to. It felt like, you know, if I wanted to just keep using that plasma rifle for the entire game, I absolutely could have. But it felt more natural, it felt better overall. Like, not just mechanically, like, this is the correct decision, but it felt better to play by changing things up and doing things differently and, you know, learning and developing as a pilot. And it's like, damn. What a good video game! Love the big charge lasers so much, yeah. Yeah, Armored Core 6. Absolute class act. What a good game. I could I do intend on going back and like trying out more builds and doing another playthrough or two. Like, I do plan on doing that, but I feel like even if I did not do that, that first playthrough was so damn good that I would be satisfied if I never did. They buffed the fuck out of Reverse Joint. We're in it, baby. I'm back. Oh god, how many games are left? We're at 330. Oh man. There's still a lot of games here. Nah, there's a handful of these games that I can get through quick. Alright, we'll be alright. Or would people rather me cut this up into a part 2? I got a bunch of games I could get through quickly. Talks about Armored Core for 15 minutes. It's one of the best games of the year! It's so good! Yeah, maybe... I mean, I am genuinely starting to have some trouble speaking, and this is not something that happens often. I hope I'm not getting sick or anything, but I guess I have been talking for 3.5 hours straight, and also I was talking a lot during the Commander game, which I played immediately before the stream started. Get so bummed when people get hyped out about games that you can't beat because they're too hard. If that is in reference to Armored Core 6, I understand. And I know it's easy for me, as someone who did beat the game, to say, well, whatever you're stuck on, there's probably a build that could make it a lot easier. You know, there are probably different parts, different weapons that could make what you're trying to do work a little better. Or maybe, you know, trying a different gameplay style would, you know, maybe a different gameplay style, you would be surprised at how well it works out. I know it's easy for me to say that. So... I understand. I understand when there is the concern of, like, you know, even if I were using a good build, I'm still getting my ass completely beat, and I'm sad that I don't get to finish, like, experience the entirety of this really good game. Especially this game that everybody is talking up so much. I mean, that, you know, Dark Souls 1 is right here, baby. I mean, Demon's Souls is also here, but Dark is the one that people care about. It's... Sometimes these games are just too hard, and I understand. I understand the frustration. So... You know, going back to the roguelike discussion, there's a lot of value in including easy modes and, you know, assisted modes. Just giving players additional options to make the game easier voluntarily. I think there's a lot of value in that. You know, not even to get into the discussion of accessibility, of just like, I hope I don't forget to talk about this when it comes to Bayonetta 1, but some of the mashing sequences in the Bayonetta games are absurdly demanding. And that is an accessibility issue. That just, like, man, there are things in Bayonetta that I often just did not want to engage with because, like, trying to mash that button that quickly at a moment's notice would just, like, hurt my thumb. And that sucks. And then, you know, that could easily be a problem for someone who, like, you know, they've got an RSI, they have some kind of muscle issue with their hands or something like that. It's just like... that person could be the biggest Bayonetta fan in the world, but then they physically can't play it properly? Like, that sucks. Getting so tired of mashing buttons. As a Yakuza 4 gamer, the A button on your controller is starting to stick. Oh no. Yeah, I generally try and treat my... I generally try and treat my controllers well, and I think it is a testament to how good the PS4 controller is in terms of functionality and durability, that I have gone through way fewer PS4 controllers in the same span that I would have gone through a couple of 360 controllers. But yeah, like, there are some things where it's just like, I don't want to fucking mash the button. Just let me hold the button. I don't want to mash it. One of the best things Warframe did was introducing a toggle that turns all mashing instances into hold down the button. Yeah, like, that is one of the easiest things that you can do, and I think I am glad to see it becoming more and more common. Of just hold the button. You don't gotta mash. Final Fantasy 16 actually has some pretty neat accessibility options. The fact that it won't just let you use all of the accessibility options at the same time if you want to is weird. Of just like, man, I bought the fucking game. Let me turn on complete brain off, just mash the X button to see all of the cutscenes. Like, if I want to. But on the other hand, I understand the designer having, you know, that much respect for the game experience as designed. So I appreciate a lot more games adding toggle sprint instead of holding down the run key forever and ever. Yeah, that's also a big thing. And just like, you know, going back to GTA, just if you want to run fast, you need to mash the run button. And so over the course of the game, you end up mashing the button so much. Yakuza Gaiden has an assist mode that auto-combos into cool moves. Nice. You have to mash to run. So, I know this was the case in San Andreas. I think it's also the case in several other of the GTA games. But San Andreas is the one that comes to mind. Where if you hold the run button, you will run. If you mash the run button, you will sprint. And so if you mash the button, you go faster. So obviously you want to mash the button, because then you will go faster. That's awful. Yeah, it's not great. Alright. And Orlando Archer's got you in Dark Souls 1. Yeah, it's... I'm looking back through the backlog a little bit, but... Yeah, it's... The difficulty in games can be such a contentious argument, but it's... I feel like there are some games that handle that kind of thing much better, and I actually think that Dark Souls and the Souls games in general are really good at giving the player ways to deal with easier ways to deal with difficult situations, whether they know it or not. There are a lot of situations in the various Souls games that become drastically easier if you just do a thing differently. Like, the Anne Orlando Archers, it's so easy to screw up with the Anne Orlando Archers, but there's also a lot of situations with stuff like the Anne Orlando Archers where if you just know one trick about it, if you know one extra little thing that you can do to give yourself a better chance, then you'll probably just get it first try. So there are a lot of games that have a high level of difficulty, and the solution to overcoming these challenges that players might get stuck on can be, like, obtuse. They can be difficult for that player to discern, because, you know, obviously that player is not super knowledgeable or skilled if they are getting stuck in that situation. But I think there is a lot of value of how FromSoft handles their difficult games, because I think they will often have a solution that makes things drastically easier if you know what to do. Alright, later, Ash. Been watching a series on YouTube of a guy trying to get every soft counter they can to each boss in every Souls game, and it's weird how many weird interactions they put in Dark Souls. Yeah, like, there are so many weird little things that, you know, shit that I'll learn just watching a random YouTube video of just like, hey, if you do this thing to this boss, then they don't do this mechanic anymore. It's like, huh? I've got 300 hours in this game. I beat that boss 10 times. What do you mean I could just ignore that mechanic? What? It's crazy, like... Game design is wild, man. It's something. Currently overflowing with hype with a game that doesn't feel like something anyone else you know would be willing to put up with. And there was a strategy game you had to refund because it had no pause button and you couldn't think fast enough to do anything in it. Yeah, so... Especially in Dark Souls 2, there's some head-ass moments of, what? Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. But... as someone who enjoys hard games, you know, Lies of P is right here, and it's probably going to be pretty high on the tier list. I enjoy difficult games. I enjoy overcoming challenges, and I enjoy reaching, like, finding that balance of I am being challenged just enough so that, like, or rather, I am engaging with this challenge, and I can feel myself improving. I can feel, like, I can recognize where I am making mistakes. I think that's even bigger than seeing where I am doing better, is being able to see where I fucked up. And I highly value that kind of experience in the games that I play. But I'm not bothered if a game introduces a way to just, you know, oh hey, this really hard platforming section? Yeah, no, here's a thing that lets you just skip that platforming section. And it's like, yeah, sure. I am not put out because someone else got to have an easier time with a challenge that I am engaging with. And it's like, you know, some people get really frustrated, like Radon in Elden Ring. A lot of people got frustrated. They got mad that Radon got nerfed, and it's like, oh, I beat Radon back when he was stupidly overpowered and imbalanced. It's like, oh, okay, good for you. Is it a bad thing that more people will now get to see the rest of the game? That more people will be able to enjoy more of this content that you yourself are clearly enjoying? It's a weird thing. Challenge in video games is a whole thing, but broadly speaking, as someone who loves video games, put more accessibility options in your games. If not outright difficulty options, put more accessibility options. Give players the option to make things easier if they are having trouble. That's fine. But also, I like it when I at least have the option of making a game really hard. Because sometimes I just want that. Sometimes I want to get bullied by a video game. Barely squeaked by on pre-nerf Radon, and they nerfed him the next day. Yeah. Been there. Anyways. Yeah, so I guess I will do the second half. Oh god. I covered so fewer games than I expected I would over the course of almost 4 hours. We'll be back with the rest of the 2023 tier list on Monday. And then, Yakuza 5 continues on Tuesday. What is it? Second stream of the new year will be more Yakuza, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Later next week, I don't think I want to get into any long-running games, like, immediately starting into the new year. I think there's a couple more games that I would like to do, one-offs of, or one or two more streams of. Let's get a little more recording of the current tier list as it exists. I'll try and get a full screenshot of this after the stream. But yeah, I at least want to do one more House Flipper 2 stream, I think. So probably another House Flipper 2 stream sometime next week. And we'll see what's what. I got a few games gifted to me over the holidays, so I might be checking out some of them. It'll be fun. Hopefully I will see y'all there, whatever those streams end up being. First stream after Ichiban's birthday, yeah! Alright. That was fun, and I'm looking forward to finishing off this tier list, because I just like talking about video games. Oh no, I just spent almost 4 hours just talking about how much I liked video games instead of making jokes. I'm a bad content creator. Oh god, my throat. Okay, I need to shut up. Thanks again to Dan for the 46 months of Tier 3 resubscriptions. The 46-month streak. Thanks again to Porps for the 25-month streak in spirit. Ash for the 24-month resub. Ash for the Tier 1 gift sub, and Dan for the 20 gift subs. Holy cannoli. Video games, they've come a long way since Pac-Man. Get some Jeff Gerstmann energy going. Right, who we raiding? Who's up? Digi! Digidoggy is currently doing GeoGuessr, and Zeldrick is currently streaming Lies of P. We're gonna go hang out with Digi. And hopefully I will see you all on Monday for part 2 of the tier list stream. Have a good one.